Hey, we're live from the bunker. I'm about to invite um, Substack Bruno Batate, the Harrowings Live podcast thingy from the bunker is something I do periodically. Hi, Florian Berkmeyer, MD. Good to have you with us. I'll look for Bruno. There he is. And see if he sees this. Invite sent. So I am not thinking a lot right now. We were talking a little bit about some Supertramp lyrics that Bruno was sharing with me when I was out on the street live earlier today. Pardon me. Um, so let's see if he can join. I gotta make that a past tense sent. Okay, so we're still waiting. Nothing else new, really. Florian, it's good to see you here. I don't know a lot about you, but I see you on my live stream fairly often. If you have any questions, you can add them to the chat. If you wanted to join us, we can have three-way chats. That's possible here. And yeah, so I don't have a heck of a lot in my mind at the moment. I've been actually reading through some of my Substack stuff. I did a Keeping the Dead Alive Part 5, and I just removed the paywall from it. I think I cast it up as a note so people could read it if they're interested. A lot of that's about family stuff from way back, going back to some of our photographs. We're relatively long-lived people, and I'm realizing a lot of the, kind of physiognomy that I've got going on here resembles my great great grandfather, William Samuel Gill. He kept his head of hair apparently well into his dotage, as did my own father for that matter. So sometimes that skips generations. It seems like it's just sort of hopping around. My great grandfather was quite bald, as was my grandfather, but I haven't had that happen. So I was just talking about baldness, Bruno, as I'm just ad-libbing like crazy. Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Got the audio. All right. So Bruno's over in Italy. I'm over here in the Washington, D.C., in the bunker. And we were talking a little bit about Supertramp lyrics. So you want to flesh that in a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. You were walking around DC as usual, and your chat reminded me of an old lyric of a rather unknown song by Supertramp, which is called "Casual Conversations."
Mm-hmm.
And the lyrics are about a couple. It's about a couple that is not working any longer, and basically they express to each other, we have conversations, but they are really empty and they're going nowhere. And so, the fact that we cannot talk any longer means that our relation is over. That's pretty much the context of the song. Okay, the song is called "Casual Conversations." And it,
Got
it
it.
is it is a B-side of the Breakfast in America album. And
Breakfast of America.
I wrote it to you because because what you were. I arrived at the end of your life, and your words were talking about something like nostalgic about the past that is has gotten lost, and we're trying to recover it. And so it brought me immediately that lyric. And I'm like you. I mean, I am structured, but I'm like doing like references come, cultural references come from everywhere, and I do have that inclination to chaos that you also have. So I
But you
put the
fight it
lyrics.
well.
I put the lyrics, and I wanted to explain why I put the lyrics, and you cut the live, and I said, now it sounds like
I
I'm
just
telling you,
arrived
oh,
at the
your
cafe and I
casual
didn't want to go
conversation
in
is
live.
boring.
Didn't want to put my colleagues on the spot by putting them on camera. But it was
Yeah,
fun. I enjoyed my time this morning talking to my colleagues there, and then I got back out on the street and went back up the street doing a little filming, and got back home. And I don't have a lot of ideas in my head by myself, so that's why dialogue with you is good. Um,
I
any
beg, I
plan?
beg, I beg to differ. Your head is a never-ending. Yeah, it's a never-ending well of ideas that come and go. You're full of references, and usually, yeah, I would say that I'm. You from all the references you throw, usually I know half, which is quite a bit, but there's another half that I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm surrounded in books all the time, so that helps. I've got piles of them around me now. I need to really organize this place better. But who cares, really, when it comes down to it? My wife does a bit. She can't stand it in here because it's so junky. But we ought to plan a little bit probably for what we're going to be talking about. Is it aliens? Really? We're going to do that UAP thing I thought up?
That's what we ended on the last Three Amigos podcast. Let's talk about aliens.
Thursday. And are they real or not? Because I have not been paying much attention to that noise. They're calling it UAP, which is unidentified aerial or anomalous phenomenon. I think is what the UAP stands for. I've forgotten actually. Why did they change it from UFO to UAP?
Because UFO was an identified flying object, and UAP was an identified.
I'll double check.
Let me remember what is UAP.
I don't know.
An identified anomalous phenomena.
Anonymous, yeah.
And the idea was to expand the concept, because not everything that we see on the sky is a flying object. It can
Yeah.
be a levitating object. It can be something that starts from the ground, or that and also some of them are phenomena, in the sense that sometimes it's meteorological balloons that have gotten lost and fly around the world. So that's why they modified it. There's a recent modification. I find it cosmetic. It's irrelevant. But,
Yeah.
and it also has to do that UFO is a word very charged from science fiction,
Yeah.
and from conspiracy theories. So it's very charged. And after the X-Files, it got even more charged. And after the 1960s TV series The Invaders also got very charged. And also after the H.G. Wells book, the War of the Worlds, it got also very charged. So if you go to older conceptions of aliens, like for example Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury, or the first encounter with flying saucers, which was in 1947, with this group of five planes from the U.S. Air Force, which were the first ones to identify these flying dots in the sky in an organized manner. When that happened, nobody was using the word UFO. The word UFO was introduced in literature by a rather polemic archaeologist, a German archaeologist called Erich von Däniken.
I remember him. Well, I remember his Chariot of the Gods. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And Erich von Däniken, actually, I went into UFOs because of Erich von Däniken, not because of good quality science fiction. And Erich von Däniken was, very syncretic. He would mix old archaeological sites with old archaeological paintings, like the Mayan ones. And he would develop this theory that aliens have been coming to the Earth way before civilizations, and maybe they helped some civilizations. And he went with all these hypotheses, which is very hypothetical. Like he has some. He's basically created this hypothesis, basing it on drawings, on hieroglyphs. But the hypothesis is weak. Now, the only thing interesting about it is that he's a guy that traveled around the world, so he could place like the Mayan depictions of UFOs with Egyptian hieroglyphs about people coming from space, and so he developed this how would you call it, this lore. He developed this lore about aliens being super civilized people that come over to our planet every once in a while, and they give us a little push so that we correct our ways and we do not destroy our civilization. That's pretty much his theory, But it's very mythological theory. He has been debunked or questioned many times. But what I like is that von Daniken was more into creating legends. He was before Area 51, which pretty much took over the dialogue about aliens. So that is why the Pentagon decided to move into a more scientific terminology, which was UAP. Basically, because
Yeah.
moving objects in the sky are not all flying saucers. There's other things that are also moving in the sky.
Well, yeah, like bright orange lights off your left wing if you happen to be the pilot Edward Schloeter, I can't remember pronounce his name, and radar observer Donald J. Myers and intelligence officer Fred Ringwald. They saw 8 to 10 bright orange lights off their left wing, and this is in World War II when they were flying with the 415th Night Fighter Squadron and Bristol Beaufighters over the Rhine Valley near Strasbourg in November 1944. So
I
that
didn't, yeah,
predates your 47 thing. The Foo Fighters, they were called. And I found out the origin of Foo while I was looking them up. Um,
I didn't know this case, but yeah,
it
those
was
are.
borrowed, the term Foo Fighter was borrowed from a popular comic strip, Smokey Stover, which I never heard of before this, by Bill Holman, in which the firefighter character used the nonsense word, where there's foo, there's fire. During a debriefing after one of the sightings, Meyer is said to have slammed a comic down and referred to the lights as Foo Fighters, and the name stuck and spread widely among the air crews. But they were seeing them a lot in World War II. These anomalous flying things near their planes, and they're probably reflections, but I don't know. But I do think it's interesting that Jung had a whole book about UFOs. You remember that one, Carl Jung's book?
No.
You haven't heard of that one? Anyway, he thought it was psychological that people started seeing projecting out of themselves, right? These things to sort of like, and there's a new mythology being developed. Joseph Campbell would say, we're trying to develop a new mythology here. I
Yeah,
think it's
The Joseph Campbell theory I know. Yeah, yeah.
sure. And the bottom line for all this stuff, and you'll have to look up Carl Jung's book. I think it is actually called UFOs as a psychic phenomenon or something like that. And I don't know. I've never seen anything myself. Have you?
Yes, I have seen flying saucers. Yes.
Oh, really? What? Tell me about it.
I have two different experiences. When I was like 11 years old,
Hmm.
I was in the mountains in the south of Chile,
Uh-huh.
and our car broke down and at night in a very dark road,
Wow.
and we had to fix the car however we could. Basically, the wheel came off, so it was very difficult to raise the car to put the wheel back. And
Wow.
while we were doing this on a black moon, so it was totally dark, we saw very quickly a group of 3 or 4
Huh.
moving objects very close to us, and they just passed by. We saw them passing by, and that's my experience. That was when I was 11 years old. And then I have another experience, which is my other experience was in this. I was older in Chile. In the sixth region, there is this is very nice because it's like a horror movie. There is in the sixth region there is the capital city is Talca, and from Talca to the mountains there is a road that is like Dogville. Like if you take this road, you have to come back by the same road, and this road ends up in Vilches, which is a very small weird town that reminds you of any zombie movie or any John Carpenter movie, like In the Mouth of Madness, or Dogville. Also, Dogville doesn't have UFOs, but it's basically a town that you arrive at the end of at the end of a road, and this town Vilches is very famous because it has constructed, it's a village, it's 10, 12, 14 houses, no more than that.
Hmm.
And it has a very particular kind of woods, that the woods cover the road, so you're like in a permanent vegetable tunnel, like a little bit like the movies of Sam Raimi, like Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. So
Hmm.
there is, just arriving into the place is already very weird. You're in a 60s sci-fi movie, but at the
Okay.
end of, the road there is a platform built with rocks, and if you look at the platform looks like a landing site for UFOs. Now,
Okay.
on top of that, if you go talking to the villagers,
Mhm.
all the villagers have seen UFOs land, but they refuse to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. Okay, so when you go into this village, an atmospheric feeling of paranoia in which everyone knows, but nobody wants to tell you. But they pretty much tell you underlining. Between the lines, they tell you we get aliens coming here every now and then. And if you talk a lot to the guy of the bar and the policeman and all that, they seem to have some kind of secret between them that reminds you of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Put up here. Well, that's very interesting. You
Yeah,
believe in this,
those are my two experiences.
and
Okay,
do
but
you?
all this, my personal experiences, and also Ray Bradbury and Asimov, and
Yeah, I was looking at
there's,
Asimov
there's
today.
also a little bit of excerpt from Louis Pauwel and Jacques Berger. I don't know if you know them. They're French investigators of
Mhm.
paranormal activity, and they produced in the 50s two very important books, which is The Rise of the Magicians and The Return of the Magicians. They're classics on the
Oh,
esoteric
interesting.
literature. Yeah, I like them very much because it's a scientist with a journalist, and so they write the books together, Louis Pauwel and Jacques Berger, and they like took over the narrative about aliens, among other things, because they're investigators of anything that is paranormal, and
Huh.
they try to find out some truth about it. So I actually started my interest in aliens from them. Now, when okay, this is origins. Where did we get this fantasy of the aliens? And the first one, the really first one is Easter Island and the Sphinxes in Egypt, which is basically that there's no way to have built the pyramids, and there's no way to have moved the huge statues in Easter Island if it wasn't for some kind of device, some kind of motor that could lift the rocks in the air and move them. That's really
Yeah,
the thing.
anti-gravity.
Yeah, exactly. That some kind of anti-gravity device. But okay, that's the archaeological, historical, conspiratorial origin of UFOs, which is
Mm.
quite a subject to talk about. But there's another subject which I like to talk about, which is more it has more to do with psychology, and it is that whenever I think how we can modify the collective unconscious. Let's go back to you. Whenever we can modify the collective unconscious, it has to be with an impacting event that can modify collectively the mind of all of us. For example, a pandemic, for example, a war, for example, a natural disaster like a meteorite impacting the planet, because if anything like that happens, immediately it provokes a change in collective unconsciousness. Basically, it opens the door to the fact that maybe we are not the most evolved sentient species, and maybe there are other sentient species that could be superior to us, and therefore we could become their mentees, or we could become their slaves, or we could become their victims. And this is what gives way to the idea that aliens are pacifiers, or aliens are predators that want our planet, or aliens have been observing us just to give us a help whenever we're on the verge of disaster. And therefore, you
Mm.
get all the lines. You get, for example, Martian Chronicles has to do with collaboration, and H.G. Wells has to do with total annihilation and predators. And my favorite classic movie about contact with alien species is a movie from 1951, which is called the Day the Earth Stood Still, which
Yep.
it has a
Klaatu Barada Nikto.
Exactly. Claudio Barada, Nick. Yeah. You are into the lore. Okay, I think this movie, which was done by Robert Wise, which is a very good director,
Mhm.
and it had very good actors, proposed something different. Proposed that the aliens were coming here to help us restructure United Nations. And so they come into the planet and they land on the mall between the Washington and the Lincoln Monument, and they say, we only want to talk to world leaders. We're not going to talk to anyone but world leaders. And so world leaders decide that it is not a good idea. If they decide it's not a good idea, then the flying saucer opens another door and a huge robot comes out, and the robot says, if you don't give us our meeting with the world leaders, then we're going to begin destroying the earth. And so it is like a forceful proposition to pacify the world. And
Yep.
I like this movie very much because it's like a midpoint. It's not, they want to help, but if we don't acquiesce, then they will kill us. uh,
Because we're
so
dangerous now that we can make nuclear weapons, right? That we're a
right,
dangerous force
yeah,
to the
they're
universe,
actually very, yeah, the movie
and we're
is
not
51,
mature
so
enough to handle
the
it.
movie is 51, so it's pretty much a reaction to the creation of the atomic bomb. But
Yep.
okay, philosophically, what I like about this conception of aliens is that, uh, for example, right now, if a flying saucer would land in the mall between Washington and the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Monument, this would immediately modify collective unconsciousness about the world. It would stop Trump. It would stop the
Well,
warmongers. It would
they'd be
stop the
arrested for messing up the reflecting pool that's between those two.
yeah. It's like some people
They'd be
actually
immediately arrested by ICE.
because of the reflecting pool. I saw
Yeah,
some posts in
take care of
substance.
these
It
aliens
was the aliens that it was not the
and
Olympic
deport them back to where they
guy.
came from.
Yeah, they came and they ruined the reflecting pool just to fuck up our brains, which I find very funny. But
I've been down there, by the way,
what is
once.
what is this hypothesis is being developed by cinema later on
Mhm.
with two movies. First it develops it with Invasion of the Body Snatchers,
Oh, right.
which is we are a vegetable species alien, and we think that we can do what you do, but we need to get rid of you, but we're going to make vegetable replicas of you. So we make the vegetable replica and you die. And the vegetable replicas are exactly like you physical, but they have no emotions. So the solution is to create a copy, a cloning, a vegetable cloning of all of us that will, with the control of emotions they have, they will take care of the planet in a better way, which I find the best metaphor because it's something like saying the problem with humans is emotions. So we need to clone humans in a vegetable manner so that they can take over the planet without quarreling with each other. Now you've seen the movie. The movie is also horrendous because each valuable character is replaced by a plant, and the cast is really good. It's Donald Sutherland and Jeff Goldblum, like really good actors. And so to see how really good actors
So that's a
become
remake.
plants, huh?
That's a remake then. The
Yeah,
Invasion of the Body
there's been
Snatchers.
three versions, but I prefer
3
version
versions. The
I
Jeff
prefer version.
Goldblum version you've seen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then the version number two, which is from 60 something, 68.
Uh-huh.
That is my favorite version because it's really well done.
Mhm.
And it focuses in the philosophical problem, not in the visual effects. Then you have another TV series, a mini TV series from the 80s, which is called Invasion. Invasion, and this is like a group of flying saucers that arrive on Earth, and they immediately propose an alliance between their political leaders and our president because they think that the communion of the two races can save the planet. But eventually we found out that they are all reptiles and that they have their own agenda, and they
I like
actually.
V. That sounds like the movie V, or
Yeah, it's
actually the
V.
series.
Yeah, it's V. It's V. Excuse
Oh,
me,
V.
it's V. The
Yeah,
series.
this
Yes.
for the visitors.
Yeah,
and that they're reptiles with their own agenda. Yeah, I remember
speed,
that
which
vividly when
which
I
I
was a
like
kid.
very much also because they fool us. Huh? They fool us.
And
They can.
actually, there are those people who believe that actually there are lizard overlords from another planet that are actually doing all the calling all the shots on the world stage these days. You know, the World Economic Forum, Davos, and all that. Yeah, they're all lizard replicants or something.
Now, all these different visions of aliens, they are protecting us. They want to collaborate with us, or they want to gaslight us so that they take over, or they simply come here to exterminate us. All the versions. Um, each one has its own how you say, final message. Final warning. But beyond all that source of and then again saying that aliens have been coming many times, and they have come in
Mhm.
key moments. But beyond that, my take on the discussion of aliens would be that we are right now in a moment in which we are enslaved by social networking and AI, and therefore, if the aliens arrive, we will have a very naive approach to them, which is very well described on Tim Burton's Mars Attacks, in which we pretty much open a party, a welcome party for them, and when they come down, they immediately begin killing everyone. So the naive part is also good, but whatever the case may be, they might be good, they might be our mentors, they could be the engineers in the philosophy of alien and aliens. They could be our predators, etc. They can be many things. We don't know what they are, but in all cases, they're a superior civilization. So, what I like about this is that, for example, we have a war with Iran, and we have a war with Ukraine, and we have a problem with Gaza, and now slowly, bit by bit, all the wars are becoming one single war. So if a superior life being arrives to Earth, it would immediately produce an effect on the collective unconsciousness, and it will bring us immediately to uh, reunion between us, because now we have a common enemy, and so Iranians and Ukrainians and Russians and Americans maybe will join to defend ourselves against the aliens.
Well, this is the whole thing about Avengers, and it's about
Yes,
Independence Day. That was a great one. I was watched that with a friend of mine who's from Moscow. You know,
yes,
I was at the University of Pittsburgh, and I was very much embedded with the German and the Slavic department. They were all on the same floor. So getting the Russians and the Germans together was
right,
near and
right.
dear to my heart because
And,
I love getting them
it's-
together.
as you well know, when we face a common enemy, it produces alliances.
But when I saw it with my friend from Moscow, she was appalled, and he's gone. I wanted to share, guys, with you all the fact that yes, Jehovah is an alien. I read that. I'll read a little bit of it while he's away. Yes, Jehovah is an alien and still threatens this planet. You should defy the sinister star forces which mock us all. Evil demons have kept the truth from humanity for thousands of years. So, anyway, I was just sharing with folks a little bit of the book of the subgenius. And I don't know, are you familiar with the subgenius and Bob Dobbs? No? Good.
No,
It's actually a parody religion that was started by a couple of stoners in Texas. And they use a piece of clip art as their main thing. And they say that Jehovah is an alien. There's a
yeah,
whole,
no,
this is
no.
actually kind of a huge
There's,
underculture in
there's
our society.
several there's several cult movements that go into this, like um, aliens are our saviors, and they're coming to pick us up and drive us somewhere else so that we
I've wanted to
understand.
insert this in our conversation too. I was just listening to Don Henley's Inside Job, and one of his songs in there is, "They're not here, they're not coming." We got to take care of our own selves, and there is no such alien savior going to show up and unite the world. We could unite the world right now without aliens. In fact, we have met the enemy and he is us, is one
Yeah,
of the
but right now we're in such a moment of rage bait, and it is like a cross rage bait. Like neo Nazis hate the Jews, and we do not hate the Jews. We hate the Israelis, but the Israelis might try to develop a political alliance with the aliens against anti-Semitism.
Well,
They are
that's a problem, right? You've always thought about the Jews as being the issue. I don't know. I think all these labels are really confusing because we're so closely related genetically.
I mean, we are closely related, but in the last 10 years,
There's very little diversity.
culture wars have taken a toll.
What's taking its toll? I'm sorry. What is taking its toll?
What I mean is that rage baiting, creating division, the old principle of Julius Caesar, divide and conquer, now has been boosted by the fact of social networks in which we're constantly arguing with each other and always quarreling with each other because rage baiting creates more clicks than agreeing. People that agree
Well,
are
that's
boring.
right. It's the attention economy, right? And negative attention is still attention.
Yeah,
So
I have a more developed theory about this, but
go ahead.
basically, rage creates click, whereas good news create no fucking click because good news are boring. Whereas bad news, turn your adrenaline on.
Yeah, if we're all blissed out all the time, we don't get anything done.
But basically, the division of human points of views, do it for religion or tradition or ethnicity, could be immediately resolved the day a flying saucer arrives in the earth. Immediately will change a changing in collective minds.
Collective
So
consciousness would alter.
immediately, because it will make us all focus into something new, which is sentient also, and to which we have to either diplomatically talk, or we have to fight, or we have to organize, or we have to understand their intentions, or we have to understand the language. So the focus and division between us suddenly switch into what do we do against this common threat, enemy, alien invader. What are its intentions? And this is a repetition of what happened when the Spaniards and the Portuguese arrived in the New World, and
This is a good point.
we didn't really know how to deal with it, and we immediately embraced them as gods because they had shining armors and horses,
And showed up at the right time.
and it was a disaster.
It's the
There
year
is this,
one read, right?
they immediately thought they were gods, and Apocalipto, which is a movie I don't like at all. Apocalipto is interesting because Apocalipto continually shows the level of violence and absolute lack of human rights between the Indians. And when finally the Indians arrive to some kind of truth, some kind of joining forces, in the moment they say, okay, let's fight together, they in the last shot of the film, they turn around and they see the sea, and Columbus is arriving. And Columbus is arriving, which is a metaphor to say, okay, you have agreed, but you're too late because the new threat is arriving.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing that we crossed the ocean then and started to infect everyone. One of the articles that I've got out there is on my father's thing on colonial germ warfare. They used to use smallpox infected blankets and give them as gifts to the Indian ambassadors and spread smallpox among them, wiped them out.
It expresses the fact that that any alien arrival will be considered a threat before an alliance.
Yeah, I think the unknown is usually thought of as being not helpful.
The only exception, which is a very utopian and beautiful exception, is Close Encounters of the Third World by Steven Spielberg.
Yeah,
and
they brought back all the.
I like this movie because there's like a little bit of touch, like the plane, I mean, the flying saucer arrives and stays quiet, and they begin communicating with music, which is a very beautiful
Yep.
thing of this movie. You know, da, 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 da. And so Americans begin to answer to the pattern, da, 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 da. And suddenly they begin building sort of a symphony, which is the most beautiful, I would say, depiction of our encounter with the aliens, because it puts music in front of dialogue, in front of language. It resolves the problem of Babelization. I don't speak your language, you don't speak my language, but through music we can give the other the feeling that we're not here to harm.
It seems to me, and I could be wrong, but that it's very unlikely that we'll ever have any communication with any life forms that have come out from other star systems. Our own, I don't know. Um, the Bermuda Triangle springs to mind too, about all those lights they're seen going into the sea and coming back out as though there's a civilization. And the hollow Earth theory. You've heard of the hollow Earth theory?
Well, I heard of what?
The hollow Earth theory. And in fact, Richard E. Byrd in South America is said to have flown into the hollow Earth when he was down in South in the Antarctic.
Oh yeah, yeah. You mean that they're hidden downstairs and they will
Yeah,
eventually.
down underground. There's this a hollow
Yeah,
Earth. And there's a civilization under there that comes up and goes down, but it's really hidden from all of us.
yeah,
Earthlings up top.
the H.G. Wells doesn't explore
Yeah.
that theory,
Uh-huh.
but the later movie, particularly the movie by Steven Spielberg, goes totally into that. Like they've been dormant down there, and suddenly they come up.
Which one was that? I missed that one. Do you remember the name?
What are the worlds?
Oh, War of the Worlds. That was Spielberg did that?
There's three versions, and
Oh, okay.
Spielberg
I
did
missed
the
that
last one.
one. All right.
Spielberg did the last one, and Spielberg is the most violent, the most exterminating.
Uh-huh.
Like they come up and they immediately begin destroying everyone.
Well, there's World War Z. I've heard about that too, where the zombies come alive, the living dead. We're an interesting species in our storytelling for sure.
Now in all these versions of what would it mean for aliens to arrive, before going into what are the intentions. What
Mhm.
I like is that the arrival of aliens immediately modifies the paradigm. You see, it means that there are other sentient beings which could be more intelligent than us, more evolved than us, or more predatory than us, and therefore, Trump, poverty, hunger, or the wars immediately become a secondary problem in front of this new menace. So it makes us join, as it happens in dictatorships. When you have a
Oh,
Mariscal
absolutely.
Petan, or when you have a Pinochet, or when you have a Trump, people tend to a group.
Well, you definitely see this happening in Nazi Germany when they and Goering was very clear on it. He said, all you have to do is convince the people that they have an external threat, and you can get them to do just about anything.
Yes.
As long as you tell them that their lives and their lifestyle is in danger and that the other party is going to destroy it. And I've seen Trump doing that, definitely. And I don't know. I'm kind of aghast that we've gotten to this state, but I am pretty well convinced that even without interference from aliens, we could do just what you and I are doing right now. We come from very different backgrounds, but we're having a meeting of the minds and it's civilized. It doesn't feel like we're arguing with each other. And I think that we can build that one conversation at a time amongst all of us. And that's what I hope to inspire everybody who's listening to us here. We've got a fair number of guests. They're not saying anything yet, but they're encouraged to ask questions. And yeah.
It's important to tell our guests that we are organic
Yes.
builders. It's important for our friends to see here that we picked up this subject because it came up on a previous conversation, and this
Yeah.
is a preparation for the Three Amigos podcast, in which we will arrive with something a little bit more structured.
Potentially. I don't know where everyday junglist is right now, but he's probably trying to scrounge up some work, I expect. And, maybe he's doing some AI training. This is the alien that we have amongst us right now, in some degree, even though I do not believe silicon is ever going to be capable of human thought or creativity, the imagination that you and I have. I don't think it's going to be able to do those things. I think it can be an adjunct and we can use it to extend our imaginations.
Well,
There's a lot of magic.
you still
Go
have
ahead.
there's many hypotheses about how to confront the aliens. And another there's three more hypotheses. One is that the aliens are coming here to take revenge for the aliens that we kidnapped and made experiments in on Area 51. So they're coming for vengeance. They're coming for
Okay.
vengeance.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
Then there is the Earth, the day the Earth stood still, which is a political dialogue between the leaders of the other planet and our leaders. And then you have this attitude of aliens that are observing us and have been observing us for a long time, but they do not want to intervene because they think that we have to find ourselves the solution of the problem. And
Like
they
the angels in Far Away So Close or Wings of
Yes,
Desire.
exactly. And because they didn't find the solution, so they want to see us from an observer point of view without intervening to see if we come up with the solution.
And have you read Memories, Dreams, and Reflections by Jung, the memoir?
No.
In it, he talks about how ghosts are like that too. The ghost of his father comes to him in a dream at just before his mother dies, wanting to know what the latest thinking of marriage is because he was going to have to take up that relationship again when she moved to the other side. I don't know. But Jung did a lot of thinking about UFOs as well, and I need to go read the books. I have not done that yet. I have read his Memories, Dreams, and Reflections some time ago, and have little fragments of that dancing around in my head because he was, interesting in the way he saw himself going out of the Earth up to some sort of asteroid when he had his heart attack. And looking back down, he knew that he was up at a certain altitude and he could see India and he could see Europe. Anyhow, let's get back to planning. Maybe I don't know that this is going to be a great topic for us, but maybe it will be. If that's a topic you want to talk about, we can talk about it for sure. And you bring a lot more structure to Dan and my interaction, which is a very helpful thing to have, I believe, because we will go anywhere fast.
Is it helpful or do I
I
bugger
think it
you?
is. Yeah. And I wanted to hear a little bit more of your work in Chile. You actually organized filmmaking um, somehow in Chile. Can you tell me more detail about what
Organizing
you're doing there?
organizing what film?
Yeah, in film, when you were doing there, you had an organization, right? Did I
I had
pick
a
that up correctly?
I had a production company. Yeah.
Okay. So how did that go? And
It went well for a period, and then COVID ruined it.
oh, of course it did.
But my movies have some kind of humanism all the time. Like if we are to solve the problems of the world, it has to come from us, and coming from us means it has to come from a spiritual progression on each one of us. Okay, we have to change our minds. If we change
Talk
our
more about
minds,
that.
then the solution comes, and it's not the other way around. This is why now that we are trapped in this constant rage baiting and constantly finding the divisions between each other, this is totally counterproductive.
Are we really doing that though? Because every time I have a conversation with a person, it ends up being like the conversation I'm having with you, which is we find common ground. We share our humanity with each other, our vulnerability, the fact that we are sort of thrown into life without a roadmap and we found a certain path and we may have arrived at different points and dropped off of the edges. I don't know. Your current situation, you describe yourself as a hermit. Do you want to give it a little more detail?
Yeah, I think that if aliens ever arrived,
Uh huh.
we should be way more organized than what we are now.
Exactly.
And
And have that common ground.
I was expecting. This is why I like the Earth Stood Still, the 51 movie, because the Earth move still forces humanity to agree, forces humanity to break the division and remind ourselves. It destroys racism, because it's us against another civilization which is more evolved and which has already resolved the problem of agreeing. They've agreed to invade our planet, and so they're one step ahead. They're one step ahead, and therefore they force us into dilute anything that divides us and create a joint force. And this is historically what has happened with any dictator, you see. For example, we won't get rid of Trump until American population sort of identifies Trump and the oligarchs as the main enemy. And
Yeah, until we're really inconvenienced, right? And I think that's the big problem is that most people are innervated. In other words, are numbed out by the sheer volume of noise projected at them. And so they shut down and they really go local with just immediate family and friends and don't really try to organize beyond that. That's what seems to be happening.
yeah, but let's go back to the different hypotheses.
But they're also kind of fat and happy with it, you know? It's
I
like
mean,
bread and circus.
aliens come up and offer us a utopia, just like Thiel and Musk are offering a utopia, and we can be gaslighted into it or not.
Okay.
Aliens can arrive with the solutions, like they can restore a natural balance, teach us how to grow crops, teach us how to create a better balance with the planet. They can also tell us, look, there's not many planets like the Earth. So if
Right.
you fuck up, we'll move into another planet. You have a choice. It's up to you.
We don't have another planet. No planet B.
No, but they might have another planet.
I kind of doubt it. I also doubt they can transcend the distances. If the speed of light is indeed a speed limit, got to have something better than that. Speed of thought. And Jonathan Livingston Seagull springs to mind. You know that book, Richard Bach's Jonathan.
Richard Wright, yeah, yeah, of
Yeah,
course. I like
the
him very
idea
much.
that you can get somewhere just by the speed of thought. The
Yeah,
ultimate speed is being there.
I do, and I think that there's another book by Jonathan Livingston which is better.
Richard Bach. Yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot.
I'll tell you immediately. Was because Richard Bach then wrote another book
Yep.
which was much more into the point. Let me find it. Richard
Great.
Bach.
There's a great reference to make then. Um, I just don't believe in aliens personally. I don't think we can get them. I don't think they're going to be here. I think we need to use our intellect to transcend a lot of our rage baiting and things like that are happening on the surface. Again, it's like harrowings, right? That's scratching the surface. The surface looks like this, and we're and been bombarded by it, certainly. But I don't think that's how most people conduct themselves, or many people might, but isn't necessary. I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary called The Antisocial Network about 2chan, 4chan, 8chan, those rage baiting kind of memes and stuff where they were just kids doing most outrageous stuff possible for the most part. And it got really ugly. I mean, parts of it are really disgusting. But there's something in the freedom of expression too that I think needs to have a vent. Our species tends to be awfully repressed. And I think a lot of that, our tendency to say, oh, no, you can't be like this, is our repression projecting out onto the other. And by othering people, we end up generating these kinds of divisions that you're talking about that need to be broken down, and our shared humanity needs to come together. Did you find the book?
I'm looking for it, but I can't remember. Give me a second.
Okay, I'll check it out too. I'm going to just.
Danger, biplane, nothing by chance. Jonathan Livingston, I give the wings illusions. There's no such place as far away. The beach across forever. One running from safety, out of my mind. Curious dives, flying. Messiah's handbook. Hypnotizing Maria. Travels with Puff. No, I can't find the book right now. But there's
Oh,
there's, there's another book by Richard Bach, which is which is more into the point. But well, anyway, not to lose
Is it
the
Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah?
no, no, it's not that
That's the
one.
1977 book, and then the 1970 is Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I'm looking for the others. The other notable books are A Gift of Wings, essays, The Bridge Across Forever, which is, and One, which is about love and relationships written during his marriage to actress Leslie Parrish. And then there's No Such Place as Far Away, Running from Safety, later works that continue to examine freedom, coincidence, and the nature of belief. Are you familiar with the work of Robert Monroe of the Monroe Institute?
Yes, I am.
Okay. That's another thing that sprang to mind just now. And you're talking about changes in consciousness and transcending the limitations we appear to have by voyaging out of the body while you're still, alive. I found that kind of fascinating. I went there and did their like pre introductory thing where we got in the little what they call checks, which are little coffin like things with headphones on for the hemisync. One frequency going in one ear, one in the other that's supposed to bring you into theta wave. I didn't actually find myself voyaging out of my body, but I'm always interested in these things. And so was the CIA. They sent a lot of people down there to study for distance viewing in particular. So the topic will be bringing to the Tres Amigos. We want to do this on UAP, you think?
We want to do it
On UAP.
on UAP. Well, yeah, no, I mean we can talk about
See if
you know
Dan has any other
the
ideas, but
old
I'd
the
love.
old we can talk about. I mean, all this literature makes the question
Mhm.
that if aliens arrive, what is going to be our reaction? Are we going to be diplomatic? Are we going to establish some kind of agreement? Are we going to suffer a war because they want our national resources because their own planet is fucked and now they want ours?
Or just that they're
Uh,
like voracious predators.
intention of the alien is going to be key. But whatever the scenario would be, you heard my theory about impacting the collective unconsciousness. Like I think that everyone is so much into his own individuality, and everyone is so consumed by conspiracy theories that if something so huge like the arrival of aliens happens, our collective unconsciousness is going to change because we're no longer the superior species.
Well, darn, it would be nice if I could do that, if we could transcend it a little bit. And certainly we are not the superior species, I don't believe, because obviously we are out of tune with nature a good bit, and we are embedded in it, whether we like it or not. And we've been really soiling our nest.
There are other hypotheses. One which is a very dark, a very dystopian, which is that aliens have already arrived on the planet and
Sure.
they are mingling between us, and aliens have no soul where we do have souls. And the best ironic depiction of this is the John Carpenter movie They Live, which is
Okay.
a very have you seen it?
I've not seen that.
It's a very funny movie because everything seems to be working okay, but there's a special kind of eyeglasses that if you put them, you can see who is an alien and who is not an alien.
Hmm.
And the world is filled with subliminal messages, and the subliminal messages are buy more, stay home, be passive, for God is money. It's a very funny movie, very very funny movie because it tells that aliens have arrived in the planet and they're trying to fuck up our minds with subliminal messages.
Well, the arrival of COVID was something like the arrival of a thing of that sort.
It could be, although
Have you ever seen any other event that caused everybody to stay home
it could
the world
be,
over?
it could be, but in my point of view, COVID and the myth that COVID was created by the Chinese, and COVID is here to exterminate all of us so that we can we are getting rid of, and then they can come in and reorganize everything. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's so many possibilities about what would the intention be of aliens. But what I like is that whatever the intention of the aliens is, aggressive, destructive, or solidarious, or a warning, whatever the case may be, it will force an homogeneity of mental perception about what's going on, because everything that is happening now in politics is based on the fact that we are destined to fight each other until our destruction. And also, we continue with this idea that the planet has infinite resources, which is not the case. And so, aliens are either pushing forward the total depletion of all our natural resources, but not so much so that they can take the pieces and rebuild the planet, and therefore they're very strategic. There's a more compassionate thing, like aliens are here to help us mend our own ways. And then there is another version, which is that aliens are already here, and aliens are animals. And animals can really train us into recovering a level headed empathy. And also, animals are not so below us. Animals can
Oh,
actually have a language, and animals can actually have some kind of agreement, and animals can also have some kind of telepathy. At least in my observation, as I've told you before, empathy. I disagree with the idea that we got to get rid of empathy. I think empathy is a faculty of the brain. We all have it. The problem that we have is that we have not learned how to regulate it. So if you're too empathic, you're exploited and you are enslaved, and everyone takes advantage of you. And if we have a very low level of empathy, then we begin exploiting everything around us. And so a very good contribution of aliens would be to teach us how to regulate empathy instead of saying that empathy is a problem.
yeah. I don't think empathy is a problem at all. I think actually I am a iteration of you, and you're an iteration of me, and we are one thing iterating. And there is one consciousness basically that is shared across. And we use language, and it's a very clumsy tool to try to communicate. But as far as being animals, yes, I mean, we're only slightly evolved from the chimp. According to one thing I read, I have to go fact check it. We're like half a chromosome away from being a chimp. That was a Christopher Hitchens quote where he was describing God as just what you would expect from a species that's one chromosome away from being chimpanzees. And I watched Jane Goodall's, with the thunder going on in the Gombe reserve and how the chimps are reacting. And it's a lovely kind of reminder. I think actually Joseph Campbell was using that in one of his lectures that I saw some years ago. Anyhow, we probably ought to wrap it up soon. It's 3:03 on my end. And I guess it's probably 9:03 on your end in the evening, correct? Well, I really appreciate the pre-planning though. And then when we get with Dan, and if we raise him, I wonder if he's gotten onto WhatsApp yet with us and said anything. He's out there somewhere, right? Oh, he did. Yeah,
My,
Thursday worked for him. He
my
likes
mate,
the topic. Or we could do guilt as a motivator.
we could.
Do you have guilt as a motivator? It doesn't work with me much because I have a hard time feeling guilty.
Yeah, I don't think guilt is the appropriate word. I would say that rage baiting is a problem.
Yeah.
The fact that and this goes back to the discussion of truth or momentum, which is, you know
Right.
aliens arrive and we can quickly go into people against the aliens and people in favor of the aliens,
Exactly.
very
It's kind of
quickly.
like our political party system
And
here.
once again, we divide the problem in two, which is
Right.
the main problem today is that every time we face a problem, we need to divide it in two: left wing, right wing, pro immigration, anti immigration, Arabs versus evangelicals and Christians. There's a because when you divide a problem into two sides, the problem is easier to confront. But the fact of the matter is that if you're into science, any problem cannot be reduced to two. There's usually three, four, five um, antecedents that push the crisis forward. And I would say that now we are in that stage. As I told you before. Now you find people that are totally Nazis, and therefore for them the enemy is the Jew. And then we have another group of people who are not Nazis, but still consider that the Israelis are creating havoc, and so the Israelis are the enemies. And then we have another group who says that the Arabs are trying to take over the Western world. But if you see, in all these conceptions, it's always two sides: the left against the right, the
Well,
Christian
definitely
evangelists
generation of
against the Christian evangelists against the Arabs,
well,
or
it was,
the Christians against the Jews. Uh,
well, it
so
was very clear at the end of the Cold War when we saw Russia give up a lot of its states, a lot of its territories, as the different states became independent. And we thought that there was a new dawn about to happen. I don't know if you happened to see the book in 1992 ish about, maybe it was a little later. When did it, God, I'm trying to piece together. Actually, it was 97 when I actually had a copy, 96, something like that, or later. It's not coming back to me entirely. Actually, I think it was Brent Scowcroft and George H.W. Bush wrote this thing about the New World Order. And I've got it around here somewhere. I'll have to pull it off the shelf.
H.W. Bush.
George H.W. Bush, the first George, and then his,
Yeah, but you
I
see,
think it was NSA guys.
all these attempts, unfortunately, reduce the problem to two sides, and even
Well, the problem was what I was getting to is we have to have an enemy to push against.
yes, yes, of
Teams,
course, yes.
right? And that's why you were talking about having two sides of things. The dialectic, the Hegelian dialectic springs to mind. But I do believe that we are capable of transcending this and cooperating as a species. And that's what I want to try to get across in our conversations with the Tres Amigos, too. That there is hope for humanity if we use our prefrontal cortexes as opposed to always using our amygdalas, and being animalistic.
I agree to that. But for example, this present case of academic Jason Arday in Cambridge has been quite a test case, I would say, because you
What
know
happened?
Jason Arday. Do you know who Jason Arday?
I heard the name, and give me the context because I only saw something in passing about this.
He was a sociology professor on education in Cambridge, a very respectable university.
Right.
And since he wrote his PhD, he began having criticism about plagiarism. Then there was a huge study about his biography, and his biography was filled with exaggerations.
Oh, right. Okay.
Like he didn't speak until 11. He was autistic until 18. But then he finished the PhD on 27, and he became the first and youngest professor in Cambridge. And then he became the poster boy for Cambridge because they thought that with him they had really achieved the DEA rule, and at the same time uh, anti-DIA people immediately picked up the case and demolished him, like an example of the disaster of applying DAI. And therefore, the guy became a poster boy for both sides, a poster boy to destroy universities, a poster boy to destroy narcissism, a poster boy to destroy DAI. And the poor guy, finally, with all this pressure, committed suicide.
That's what I thought.
And the sad thing is that he's been dead for first he resigned, which was already an act of compliance, and then 5 days later he committed suicide. And even though the guy has been dead for 3 or 4 days, nobody has taken the stance that we all take when a person dies, which is the first thing you can do is shut up instead of throwing your theories about him, and blaming, because all they think is the blame is on himself, the blame is on Cambridge, the blame is on DEI ideology, The blame is on the leftists. Blames. And something that is very shameful is that, he died 4 days ago. His body is still warm, and we're still talking about him, and we're still taking advantage of the situation to push our agendas. And you see woke people and anti-woke people and academics and entrepreneurs and conspiracy theorists, and they all have a take on our day, and they all judge him very harshly. And this is very strange, because the first attitude, spiritual attitude about the death of a person who committed suicide is remain in silence for a little bit, let's mourn. And then 1, 2, 3 months later, we can go back and we can analyze who is the guy or who is the situation that pushed him into suicide, which is the worst thing. Whereas instead of, remaining silent for a period like any ritualistic society does. Every time a person dies in any other culture, which is not Western culture, any cultural group goes into ritual, goes into the passage of the life into a better life, goes into some kind of respect for the person, and then we can go into the sociological, psychological, political analysis. In this case, everyone jumped into the analysis even after he was dead, and they're doing it simply to get more rage bait, more clickbait. Like my interpretation of his death is the one, and then another guy comes and my interpretation is the right, and so there's people blaming him. There's people blaming the university. There's people blaming the woke culture. There's people blaming the DIA policy as it was an ideology. And so, the guy's been dead for 4 days, and we still haven't processed what it means for a person to commit suicide. And then we can go into the analysis of why this happened and who's the guilty side.
This reminds me of the internet's own boy, Aaron Schwartz, I think his name was, who was
I don't
forced into
sure.
suicide.
This is another good case. But
Yeah, and of the way it's in his case, I think the government really pushed him over the edge, and for no good reason. When it comes down to it, there's this intellectual property issue that he had supposedly
yeah, Luigi,
pressed, and
Luigi.
this I did hear a little bit about it in the periphery. It is only in the periphery of my consciousness about this
No,
unfortunate
the
suicide.
point is that, and there's Caroline Flack also, but the point is that
It reminded me too of that Million Little Pieces, where the guy exaggerated his background and he
right,
came
but
out and apologized on Oprah.
Caroline Flack, Jason Arday, David Kelly, these are people that committed suicide, but they committed suicide basically because of the strength of the media spotlight on
The
them.
pressure, yeah,
The
the pressure of the
pressure
spotlight.
and the pressure blinded us into a more widespread analysis of what's happening, because to me, DEI is not an ideology, and it's not part of the woke ideology, and woke is not an ideology either. Just like Antifa is not an ideology. Woke and DEI happened because, picking up your theory of the pendulum of history.
Well, it's kind of like ISIS as well, for that matter, or Daesh, if you prefer, or all the labels we put on to different groups in order to have an enemy, to something to project against, to project our shadow onto. And if we don't
Exactly.
recognize that we're doing that, then we're not awake and aware of really our wholeness as both creatures of shadow and light.
Okay, the point is that this tendency that we have in our mind, which is a fascist tendency, and we all have a little bit of fascism in our mind, I
Oh,
think.
of course, the shadow
I
is
think
there.
I think fascism is an operation of the mind, just as telepathy is an operation of the mind, just as empathy is an operation of the mind. This, in my point of view, are the new senses. Beyond the five traditional senses of perception, there are more senses, and these senses are applied from the brain, and
Yeah.
we still haven't learned how to deal with empathy, telepathy, compassion. And so, since we don't know how to operate with them, we are taken over by another faculty of the brain, which is fascism, the destruction of your opponent, and the cancellation of his life from history. And we now find in a situation in which mental fascism is the first attitude, it's the first attitude. I will scapegoat Jason Day because it will bring me status, voice, clickbait, a platform. I will become a recognized voice if I have this speech. It's like the speech against immigration, which is a very immature speech, or the speech about remigration, which is another very immature speech. But there has to be a difference between a policy, because I would say, for example, DEI is a policy that didn't work, but there was something behind DEI. There was the reflection that historically, in the history of the world has been built on slavery, has been built on mass extermination. It has built on a certain idea that some races are superior to the other. And this is why DI installed itself as a policy. And it's a policy, it's not an ideology. And if it's a policy, now we can evaluate if it worked and if it didn't work. And most likely, we should say now that it didn't work. But this policy was anyway trying to solve a problem that is historical and that is historical for centuries. Washington had slaves, even though he wrote, "All men are created equal." That's a
Oh,
very
Jefferson actually wrote that.
that's,
But go ahead. It was
Jeff,
Jefferson,
yeah,
but
Yeah,
that's all right.
Jefferson
Yeah.
wrote that.
Washington was out in the field.
But they had slavery, and they wrote it on
Sure. Yeah.
1780. They wrote it on
Yeah.
1789, and by 1950, racism was still a problem.
Oh,
So
very much. I mean, when I
yeah,
grew
so
up in
the
Williamsburg,
Constitution
Virginia.
wrote something very theoretical that was not solved.
Yeah.
And also the way the United States was built,
Of course.
was on the basis of slavery and on the basis of extermination of other people.
Yes,
So
exactly. It's the most complete genocide that's ever
it's the
been
most complete
propagated on this.
genocide, and the idea that we have to repay the browns and the blacks for all the centuries that we've made them suffer is a valid point. They have been always handicapped. They have always been behind. They have always been enslaved for the creation of a system that is unfair. And another policy that I wrote about in an article, is that, for example, this is a very good one. When the Civil War was going on in the United States, the majority of black men saw in Haiti a utopia, and this is because
Mm,
in the moment that Haiti got rid of the French, and in
right.
the moment that the black men were still in charge of Louisiana, okay, because
Hmm.
Louisiana was French, and therefore there were a lot of French in Louisiana, and this explains architecture and the culture of Louisiana, and also why Louisiana is such an important place for the evolution of music. Because in Louisiana, in Memphis, it's really where you got African music and American music together, and that is why rock and roll came up. Um, uh, at one moment, Napoleon decided to focus his war efforts on the war with England, because the war in England restarted in 1803, and therefore Napoleon decided to sell all his territories in America, which is called the Louisiana Purchase, which
Good deal.
doubled the territory of the U.S. But it
Yeah.
is interesting to think that, for example, when Africans were fighting for their own country in Haiti, and they had to swap, they were first combating the French, then they were combating the Spanish, and therefore they built an alliance with the French against the Spanish, and they finally got the island, and they finally became the first nation in the world to declare slavery is gone. Okay.
Hmm.
Robespierre had done it before, but then Robespierre regretted it, and so they tried to make Haiti become again a colony. But the fact of the matter is that for a 6-year period, Haiti was the first country in the world who really abolished slavery. And when that happened, Jefferson said, "We cannot accept this because our whole financial, commercial growth of our economy is based on slavery. So if there's a country that considers slavery gone, then Haiti is a menace to us. And so Jefferson immediately moved all other countries to squash Haiti. And this was very unfair because today, for example, now that everyone's talking about migration, the poor Haitians, when they finally got rid of the French and the Spanish and yellow fever and malaria, many of them flew to Louisiana because Louisiana was French. And then Napoleon sold Louisiana, and so they suddenly were not French anymore, and they didn't have a right to be there. So many of them decided to fly back to Haiti. And in Haiti, of course, they tried to create a state only for blacks and without slavery. And Jefferson decided to intervene because he thought that a country that abolished slavery and was only organized by black men could create a very, very disrupting effect on slavery in the United States. This is something terrible that happened. And for 60 years, Americans insisted and insisted in influencing and controlling Haiti. And then, Haiti became the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And after that, um, King Charles X, the French king, came over to Haiti and said, if you want your independence, you will have to pay for it. And you will have to pay 29 or 30 billion dollars, which with the passing of time became 122 million dollars. So
Hmm.
the Haitians had to pay from their poverty, their own freedom, to the people that enslaved them and destroyed them. This is called the greatest heist in the history in world history. And Haiti, it took Haiti 122 years to pay the debt. So by the time they completely paid the debt and they paid for their freedom, the country was in total poverty.
Yep.
There's actually some very interesting theories, very recent ones, particularly from the French intellectuals, Thomas Piketty. And Thomas Piketty says that France should repay Haiti $29 billion to sort this issue out, to counterbalance this historical injustice. And the French do not want to pay. But the theory has gone deep. And the theory is also one of the main impulses for what we now call race critical theory, which is a study as to how many times in the history of the world the white have been totally unfair to the black, and why we need to arrive to a point of reckoning in which we pay them back. Now, of course, this has created a lot of entitlement, and this entitlement has become the woke thing. And so now people fight the woke, but they forget that we exploited the black people for 250 years. There's this very bitter joke about the book, the ships doing the triangle, which is the ships would start in Africa and would carry the slaves to America. And then Americans would exploit the blacks until they killed them because of excessive work. And then they would charge the ships with all the goods, cotton, and all the things that were produced by the handwork of blacks. And they exported the ship to Europe, and in Europe they sold all this stuff and created richness, wealth for the Americans. And then the ship went back to Africa to collect more slaves. And so you can see this triangular ship that carries black men, then carries the cotton, and then carries the army to once again enslave black people and carry them back to America. And so you get this triangle of unfairness.
And molasses is big in there too. Don't forget the sugar plantations. Molasses to rum to slaves. That's the old song from 1776, the musical that is delivered by Edmund Rutledge, I believe, the South
Mhm.
Carolina representative, as he's trying to shame the Northerners for being, this New Englanders who were sailing those ships from Boston loaded with Bibles and rum to the African coast, where they trade their rum and Bibles for slaves, and they bring them back into the West Indies, and you see the whole circulation. And that their economies, that they're all dancing together. Actually, they're doing a kind of minuet and it's the musical is just brilliant. 1776. Have you ever seen it?
No.
No, it's worth the price of admission. 1972. It's on YouTube. You can get it for free. But William Daniels depicts John Adams, who's very anti-slavery.
Yes.
Benjamin Franklin had one of the earliest
Yes.
anti-slavery
Yes.
groups as well, but he had to compromise. There's this bastard child, the United States of America, that comes out of that really incredible ferment of intellectual vision
Of
that
course.
is not achievable in the time period in which they're in because of the economics, as you mentioned. And we have a great bloodletting that is the Civil War. I think that from the standpoint of an awful lot of people about reparations, which I don't disagree with. Hello, Dan. Um, we've got the everyday junglist joining us, looking in.
Hey,
Can't hear you, Dan. Let's see if I can hear your voice.
Are you drowned?
He looks drowned.
It looks drowned.
Maybe he'll be back. He froze just now. But my point was that when people talk about reparations, it's like, well, we already bled the whole country. Bleeding Kansas, is a big theme in John Brown's biography. He was, of course, executed before the Civil War even began when he tried that move at Harper's Ferry. But it's an interesting period. I'll try to invite Dan again, see what happens. He's often has connectivity issues, and he's looking in. I told him we were plotting on the WhatsApp, and therefore he was
No,
saying,
that,
"Oh, you live now?"
they're very beautiful moments in the development of American history. That, for example, in order, Robespierre in 1793,
Okay,
before he was guillotined, Robespierre decided the abolishment of slavery in all French colonies.
right.
Okay, so when that happened, Haitians were free to fled to Louisiana because Louisiana was still French. So if they were in an island where they were fighting the British and the French, it was only logical that they would flee to Louisiana because Louisiana was French. And then Napoleon sold Louisiana, and so
Yep,
they were stranded in Louisiana that was now American. And so
pretty horrible.
this created a very peculiar situation, which is that at one moment, an army of Haitians decided to fight along the Americans against the French and the British. And so there is this. They were called the chasseurs volontaires de Saint-Domingue, which means the voluntary hunters of Saint-Domingue, which Saint-Domingue was the old name of Haiti. So they created this group, 800 Haitian soldiers that decided to fight for the American independence. And they went into one of the most bloody battles in Savannah, Georgia. And
Mm,
there are some very interesting graphics, in which you see black soldiers together with American soldiers fighting the French and fighting the Americans. And actually, from this group, from these 800 voluntary Haitians that decided to fight for American independence, one of them became the king of Haitians in America. And this is a very interesting character. There's already been written a couple of books about the last Haitian king. And so,
mm.
the thing of reparations and the thing about racism, is something that now can only be fueled because of the amnesia about how black people participated in the independence. This also explains why Georgia, from all the states in the U.S., Georgia is, because in general terms, in statistics, from all the American population, around 11% are black,
Yeah,
but the state of Georgia has 33% black voters.
not
Georgia
surprised.
is Georgia is the state with the majority amount of blacks,
Hmm.
and and
My
it's
father
very
was briefly the
it's very
Georgia
interesting
Historical
now that
Society's
Georgia
director.
has
Sorry,
two
go ahead.
Democratic senators, because black people have been integrated in Georgia much better than in other states.
Mm, my father didn't find it so when he was the director of the Georgia Historical Society down in Savannah. He said the worst part wasn't so much like Well, it's hard to say what's worse, but for him, it was how the black people felt about themselves in Savannah, where the Georgia Historical Society was based. I wanted to show you this one. It reminded me, a conversation about the trade reminded me of this, and I won't stay still. You familiar with that one?
It looks like a blot. It looks like a Jackson Pollock thing.
Almost. It's you see the ship on the horizon there?
Not really.
No, you can't tell. That's a Turner called a slave ship. And in the foreground are arms in chains reaching above the waves because so many were lost. When you were talking about the triangle, I was thinking about the Bermuda Triangle, and I was thinking about all the souls that were lost in the Sargasso Sea. You know, as the ships got becalmed or something like that, and they couldn't feed them, all the slaves packed into the ships getting just jettisoned overboard. Um, Horrific stuff. And we do have a amnesia, I think you said, and that was a great word to pull in there because we forget too that women only got the vote by 1920s here in America. You know, the slavery went on till, of course, the Civil War, and even after that, the Jim Crow laws were in place. And when I was growing up in Williamsburg, integration happened then when I was a kid, and I'm only 63 years old now. So that was about the time I went to kindergarten, actually. The integration came about in the public schools. So all of that, you know, is our tradition and we forget about it. I was actually listening to Bruce Hornsby recently, and I may have talked about him in passing. He's a musician from Williamsburg, Virginia, and he broke a song in 1986 or so, I think it was, with his band The Range called That's the Way It Is. And it's all about how the people just are tolerating that kind of racism because some things will never
Some
change.
things will never
Don't
change.
you believe them? Go ahead.
Some things will never change.
You got it. And but don't you believe them? And his mother was very much an activist for rights of people. She just died at 92 fairly recently.
You know, the image of the triangle of ships is very important because
Yes.
the ship from Africa to the US carried the slaves. Then the ships from New Amsterdam to Rotterdam carried the goods, the commodities, and then the ships from Europe to Africa carried the slaves to carry the soldiers to re-enslave the slaves, you know. And so slaves, commodities, arms, slaves, commodities, arms, and this continued happening for a couple of centuries. And this is something that has to be acquainted, you know. All the anti-immigrant rhetoric forgets all this stuff, you know. Black
It's another form.
people were very important for the end of the secession war, and black people were very important also in the sense that when they flew to America, it was French, and suddenly it was not French anymore, but they were stuck there, so they decided to ally with the Americans. It's something that has to be understood, and it happened in a very short period of time. They fled to Haiti in 1791. Then Robespierre abolished slavery in 1793. Then Napoleon sold Louisiana in 1801, and then black people decided to stay and join Americans to create this new country. This
And
is the way.
Britain eradicated slavery, correct me if I'm wrong, about 1820, is that right? I've forgotten exactly when they
I
did,
don't
but
know exactly. I don't know exactly what was the act that eradicated
I'll have to
slavery.
look it up.
To be
But
to be honest, anyway, I can give you an answer, which is what really eradicated slavery was the end of the Civil War, 1851, and the punishment of Robert E. Lee and Jefferson Davis, and you know, the stripping of all their lands and all of their ranks, you know, and their demotion, you know. This is what really ended slavery. And then you had during Lincoln this very peculiar situation in which Republicans were in favor of abolishing slavery, where Democrats were not in favor of the abolition of slavery. And this is why historically another confusion in the US is that the Republicans and the Americans before the Civil War changed their positions. So, you know, Republicans are more important in the abolition of slavery than Democrats, whereas today
yeah, but
Democrats
they're
are
not
the
the same
ones.
parties anymore. They're
This switch,
totally almost reversed from what they used to be.
they reverse, which is very peculiar, you know.
That's not
And
peculiar for Americans. That's we're very fluid,
what
and
I
but
mean is
we're
that
also in deep denial of it.
we're in deep denial. Like if today we were to thank anyone for the abolition of slavery, it's to Republicans, not to Democrats.
Yeah, but the name, the label, it's it's strange. It's a mono party. Did you ever see? Or I've seen. I'm sure it's better. It's called "The Hanged Man." Is the story by Philip K. Dick. Have you heard of that story?
No, but
Oh.
I know Dick, but no, I don't know Dick.
It, in the dramatization, they made a mini series called I forgot what they call it. Electric Dreams of Philip K. Dick, I think is what it was called. And they filmed this particular one, The Hanged Man, as Kill All Others was the title. They made it much more direct. In this story, there's a mono party, and the candidate who is going to be, rubber stamped is saying, well, just in the general policy discussion, she just throws in there, and we've got to kill all others. And this gets in this guy's head, and he's like the only one who hears it. Everybody else is kind of oblivious to it. And then it becomes that he is, are you an other? He keeps finding these things that are indicating that he has been othered, and that's going to be fatal. And it ends up being fatal. You know? So this is kind of what I'm talking about trying to avoid othering people, of
Well,
finding a common ground,
in this process also the evolution of music is super important because
right?
after the Civil War and when Reconstruction begins,
All right.
uh, the major evolution of music comes from Louisiana, Memphis, and all that area,
We
and
get jazz developed from there.
it's basically
Sorry.
black people combining the sounds of music of country of music Americana combined with African rhythms, and
And
this
don't
is
forget
pretty
the
much
Scots Irish.
the origin of rock and roll, and rock and
Yeah, and
roll.
remember the Scots Irish influence there too. As it comes up the Mississippi Valley, it runs into all the Scots Irish kind of folk music, the Celtic stuff that's very popular, and bluegrass.
Yeah, bluegrass, yes.
Bluegrass you run into in Nashville. That's why Nashville is like this center for music, like nobody can. And Memphis, of course, can't forget Memphis.
But you see, the origin of rock and roll is basically a black origin. It's
Yeah,
Sister Roberta Thorpe and
well, it's blend.
and
And again, I will credit the Scots and Irish music to blending in with that, with the bluegrass influence is very important. Don't want to discount
yeah,
that. So
although
it's a homogenization. It's something that's coming up from the people, in other words, of
yes,
all colors.
yes, and it comes from the suffering of people. But
And it may
Rosetta
be our
Thorpe
redemption.
and Bo Diddley, for example, is a key figure in the evolution of American music. And Bo
And
Diddley is
Little
pretty much
Richard, don't
the guy
forget
that
Little
created
Richard.
rock and roll. Huh?
Little Richard, don't forget him.
He's later. Bo Diddley and Rosetta Thorpe are
Okay,
earlier.
I'm going to have to double fact check you on that one because I think they're coming up right about the same time, right in neck.
At any
But
rate,
Chuck Berry's in there
At
too.
any
Don't
rate,
forget
rock
Chuck.
and roll, which is a pride or a pride creation for the Americans, has
Mhm.
an incredibly strong element from black people.
Right, and the blues in Chicago is where you get a lot of that too. Howling Wolf, Muddy Waters. Muddy Waters is coming up from Mississippi, right?
Yes.
So
Although
he's coming from
but if you see, there's other minor characters. I like Sam Cooke. There are other black magician, black there are other black
Sam Cooke was good.
musicians that influenced. And it
And
was funny
Otis Redding. Yeah.
they changed the rhythm. They went from blues because they thought that Muddy Waters was a very important influence, but they wanted a new rhythm, which they discovered accidentally, which is rock and roll. And the immediate reaction of the conservative South, of the whites, is that rock and roll was the devil's music. Okay, and they demonized the devil's music. And for black people who created the rhythm, it was very difficult for them to go and play in clubs and go and play because there was a religious backlash against them. Like, and mothers would tell black
Red Bone.
boys, do not play Don't bring the guitar here, and don't play this sound because this sound is the music of the devil.
You ever see Jimmy Page's very first television thing? Mama don't allow no skiffle playing in here. It's very
Yes,
cute. He's like a teenager on that television show. But quite right. Hey, Dan is back.
Danito.
He doesn't have audio. Mouth's
He doesn't,
moving, no
he
sound.
doesn't know audio. No.
I'll work on getting your sound there, Dan.
Cut him and invite him again. That worked the last time.
Oh, you were going to cut you in, and I don't know how to cut him.
He can leave. He can leave, and you can invite him again.
The heck, man.
No, there you are. I hear you.
Working.
Yeah, what's up, Dan? We've been talking about the history of rock and roll, Haiti.
I heard some American history there too.
There's a lot of it. And what?
Bruno,
By the way,
impressive.
Bruno, did you see his comment on WhatsApp?
Very impressed. Very impressed, Bruno, with your American history knowledge.
I got a lot of data.
A lot of knowledge. Yes, you got a lot of knowledge. I know. I'm sorry, guys. I was at the pool. I'm actually up in San Diego, and I'm at a hotel, and I was at the pool when I saw you thing. So anyhow, now I'm back in my
You're
room.
suffering, so.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. For example, another element that is important, not black, but another element that is important is that Bob Dylan and Americana really based their they really considered the influence of blues. Okay, and so much so that they exported blues into Britain, and George Harrison and Eric Clapton they really say, and Keith Richards, they all say we have been tremendously influenced by the blues music of the United States. It's not particularly a British creation.
And pirate radio. They were out offshore. There's radio stations and the pirate radio.
You mean the pirate? You mean the pirate radio? Yeah.
Yeah, pirate radio. Actually, there was a Pretenders album, I think, just called that.
Although that the pirate radio and all that is a little bit later. This is when we're
actually that's where a lot of the blues music was coming in. They weren't playing it on the BBC.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. They didn't like it.
Pirate radio stations.
They didn't like it. It's true.
Yeah, and it was right in that time period, right in the late 50s, early 60s.
So what are you guys talking? What are we doing here? Do you guys have a topic, or just meandering?
We started talking UAP to see what we were going to do for the next.
We're on the preparation of our next topic, and Hal, with
did you guys see that?
Decided to make our creative meeting already a live meeting, so that everyone sees how do we build the topic,
the process, the brainstorming.
We started with aliens, and we've gotten far away from aliens.
I was going to take a nap, but hey, what do you think, Dan?
I do like that topic. I mean, I suggested that last time.
UAP is going to be it when we get together on Thursday.
Well, I have other ideas too. I like this whole. Well, anyways, we'll stick with UAP.
Rage baiting. We got rage baiting.
The whole I've been on the topic of guilt as a motivational
guilt.
tool.
And I have a real problem with that because I have a problem feeling any guilt for anything.
Well, most people do not have that problem. That's a good. Yes, but most people do not have it. This whole idea of people using guilt to get people to do things or not do things, it really bothers me, and it's such a common tactic, and it's such a terrible. It works though. It's the thing about it. It's annoying, but it's a really shitty thing to do. It really is, because it's poisonous.
The subject of guilt connects a little bit with the subject of music, in the sense that the way we've treated Black people has some kind of base. If you study history, if you know how the Americans built up their own thing, the Constitution said we're all created equal, but it was not true. Blacks were not considered equal, and women were not considered equal. And it took them 100 years to finally reach the equality that had been written by Jefferson. And so some people feel very guilty about it because this is a historical debt that we have with Black people, and some people have overcome it and think that we have to bring back Black people into our same level. Black people are also men that have been created equal according to the Constitution, whereas some others say no. The country was built on the exploitation of Black people, and therefore they are not equal.
Yeah,
There's secondary type
I mean, I don't think people say that out loud. I think people think that. I don't hear many people saying that out loud. I think there are many people thinking that probably, but I'm not seeing it unless you guys are.
They don't,
I
but
think
we
people
do.
have said that out loud
They
quite a
have,
bit. In fact, the courts have said that out loud.
yeah.
Back in
Not,
Dred Scott,
well, yeah. Historically, I'm talking about today, in present
and
day.
even today, I think that there's a strong upwelling of tribalism, I'll call it, and I think it's
Yeah,
primate behavior, and I think it's due to skin color and recognizing difference, and that kind of if I see the different, if I see the other, I'm projecting onto them all of this stuff that lies inside of me. It's kind of like Bruno said earlier, we're all a little fascist inside.
yeah. It's
You know,
funny.
I try to keep my
Speaking,
fascist from coming out, but hey, it's there.
yeah. Speaking of tribal, my wife's family, is very anti-Italian. They grew up
Are
in
they?
they were Italian races, which I didn't even think there were Italian stereotypes. Now they're still apparently still to this day there are people who have stereotypes about Italians. They're anti-Italian, and Bruno, you being one of them. You know, I guess you don't know this, but in the U.S. there are some people still that are sort of anti-Italian, very much, and it's a thing from when my grandparents were here. They definitely had this, but there
Well,
still are.
where my wife is from, they're anti Johnny Bull, and I'm a Johnny Bull, by the
I don't
way.
even know what
That's
that is.
short for John Bull, who's like the caricature of English people,
Okay,
Anglo Saxons.
interesting.
They are
Interesting.
prejudiced against Anglo
You can be
Saxons.
prejudiced. You can be prejudiced about anybody for any reason. But you can see that the Italians were immigrants then, and so
Well,
you kind of get that. Any immigrant populations get that.
I
So
think we Anglo Saxons have earned it, though.
yeah,
I
maybe
shouldn't
Italians too.
laugh when I say that because I
Yeah,
should be ashamed and I should have guilt.
you're
I
right.
should. I
Yes.
don't.
I mean, this guilt that Americans should have because of the importance of Indians and black people in the configuration of the country, which was supposed to be leveled during Reconstruction, was counterweighted by the creation of the Ku Klux Klan, which
And
was
all of our
a
Jim Crow laws.
white supremacist, theory that pretty much
I,
pushed aside these people, and you get people that say we had the right to take up this land and we had the right to exploit people in slavery, and so we have no guilt about it. Now this was finally during Reconstruction. It was finally lowered, and the Ku Klux Klan was diminished. But then the Ku Klux
The
Klan
resurgence.
got a second rebirth at the beginning of the century, and the Ku Klux Klan revived, resuscitated, and it came back. And then you had all these lynchings on Mississippi and on Missouri, and hanging people from the trees, and the death of Emmett Till, and all that, because this was a rebirth of Ku Klux Klan, and the rebirth of the Ku Klux, the second rebirth. Now we're in the third, which is the one that brought Trump forward. But the rebirth of the second Ku Klux Klan was pretty much based on the fact that the second rebirth of the Ku Klux Klan was rebirthed basically on the fact that blacks were not contributing to the American dream. Blacks were a minority, and blacks also had different interests, and they also went into ghettos, and they were physically inferior to whites, which is a stupidity because the 1936 Olympics in Germany, in München.
Yep.
Put Jesse Owens on the top, and the Nazis had to recognize that blacks sometimes are a superior race than the Aryans, which was a big crash for Germany. And Jesse Owens is a very important figure. Then you have Arthur Ashe, the tennis player, who also twisted the tables, and said, "Excuse me, but black sportsmen can actually be very superior." Then you have,
and from Richmond, Virginia, I want to tout Arthur Ashe Boulevard. We've got there, which used to just be called the Boulevard. Virginia Museum of Fine Arts is on that road. So is the Daughters of the Confederacy, actually. So it's all mixed up in Richmond.
And Ashe, on top of that, was gay, so it was a very
Yeah, it was repressed, I think.
a controversial figure, but he was a great tennis player. And
It
Jesse
was.
Owens was a great athlete. And then Usain Bolt was also another great black athlete, So the discussion about races began to wane away. And also the main racists, like George Lincoln, John.
You got it. I think you were close.
What's his name? George Lincoln, the first president of the Nazi Party in Germany.
Yeah, that guy.
In America.
He was murdered in Alexandria at a dry cleaner.
Yes, he was murdered.
You guys know some serious American history. The first
president
of the American Nazi Party in America.
He was actually around. He was around in the 50s, right? He was really big in the 50s.
George Lincoln Rockwell was a very important source to the coming back of the Ku Klux Klan. Charles Lindbergh was also a very important figure on the coming back of racism, on the second invocation of the Ku Klux Klan. And actually, you can make a long list. The list begins with Robert E. Lee, with Jefferson Davis, with all the sportsmen, and then George Wallace. There's many characters.
It's not the same. It's not exactly the same flavor throughout, though. That's one thing that's kind of interesting. I don't want to know what I mean by flavor there, but there's a difference in the kind of thing that happens.
It gets more subtle. I think it gets more subtle as you get more modern, as opposed.
I don't think it's more subtle. I think it gets more crass.
You think so?
I would say it gets more crass.
You don't have people standing up like back in the day. I mean, those guys were saying shit.
You mean George Wallace?
Yeah, I mean those guys were saying
because Lindbergh, who is a Philo-Nazi, he's the one that creates the America First concept, and he's the one that says we shouldn't go to war against Germany. Then you have George Lincoln Rockwell that creates this party where he states that America black men are inferior.
He was way off.
Then you have George Wallace with his famous segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. So each one of them builds a step forward to invoke once again the Ku Klux Klan.
And what you have is Charlottesville too. You don't forget Charlottesville just recently. Researching
to me, Charlottesville is the beginning of the third invocation of the Ku Klux Klan. Okay, with a new ideology now, which is the Great Replacement theory.
And those guys were actually marching here in just this summer.
Explain that theory, bro. Explain the Great Replacement theory. Can you explain the
Great Replacement theory? Is that Muslims and black men and gay people are grooming your society in such a manner that white men eventually will become a minority, and therefore they have to be they have to be stopped. Okay, white minority can never be a minority. This is the essence of Great Replacement theory. And
so we are the white men. We're the white men. So Hal and I are the white men. Are we all the white men?
I don't know. Do you qualify really?
I don't know if I qualify. You're not even in America, bro. I'm in Mexico. I don't count. Mexico gave up Texas. That's why Mexico ceded Texas because they did slavery. Because Mexico was fed up. They're like, we don't want slaves. They were so anti-slavery.
And also Texas was largely populated by Virginians.
And they really, they were so pro-slavery that Mexico was like, forget it. We don't.
Well, then you have the LA riots and the death of George Floyd and the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so in the end, the theory, the sociological theory about America is that America has always been racist since Jefferson.
Before that. Well, you gotta go back to our original.
Oh, I mean, what society is not, though, Bruno? What society is not racist? I mean, what country is not? That's my question.
Well, certainly Denmark was.
Racist? It's not racist. Yeah, it's not racist. What country has no racist or is not racist? Basically, that's what a country sort of is, right?
In my point of view,
nationalism.
Germany is not racist. You might find it funny, but it's not racist. Italy is not racist. The Nordic countries are not racist.
Denmark. I lived in
If
Denmark.
they were,
I would contest that.
I would say
Denmark is extremely xenophobic.
this is why we have countries. I
Yeah,
mean,
but excuse me, xenophobia is not the same as racism. There's a
Still,
difference.
you are not a Dane if you were not born there, and I don't think you ever become a Dane.
Yeah, but
even if you immigrate.
xenophobia, for example, but you know, racism has to do with your biological origin, whereas xenophobia has to do with your geographical origin. This is an important difference. So, you know, for example, in America now, they hate people that speak Ukrainian, and they also hate people that speak Hebrew, and that is more xenophobic.
That's a little globalization because I don't. I'm an American.
I'm just explaining the difference between racism and xenophobia.
There is a difference for sure, but I still think that ultimately they're kind of
I
very much
definitely do
related.
not want to overload all Americans with one big paintbrush, though. I don't think that's very fair.
Of course not.
I think our history is our history, and certainly our present day has a lot to be desired, and we've got to get a handle on things, and we're not going to get there by rage baiting.
Well, this is not what we're going to talk about Thursday, though, right? We're not. Racism is a huge topic that we probably not going to cover. So Thursday, we're talking about UFOs, right? Something a little less,
and whether the aliens are here or not, and how great it would be if the aliens showed up. Apparently,
yeah, I wish they would. Yeah,
I mean, the connection between the two subjects is that you know, reading Naomi Klein, reading the shock doctrine, and also talking to some doctors. You know, I always spoke to you about this. You know, a very good question is, what is going to exterminate human race? Is it going to be a natural disaster like a meteorite? Is it going to be war? Or is it going to be bacteria and viruses? You know, what is going to exterminate the human race?
What's it going to take?
It's not going to be bacteria and viruses because of optimal virulence. That's not going to be it. So you can rule that one out right now.
It's not going to be what?
It's not going to be bacteria and viruses because of optimal virulence. It's just
because of what?
Optimal virulence. It's a principle of evolution. So if you can't, there will never be a virus or bacteria that wipes out the human race because the pathogen needs to spread. And if a pathogen is too pathogenic, too virulent, it can't spread because it kills its host. Right. So if all the hosts are dead.
Okay, man. My point is that be it. Yeah, I've heard your arguments against it. I've also had doctors that completely favor it. But my point is that if our enemy is the meteorite, or our enemy is war, or our enemy is the other, race, xenophobia, etc., and suddenly aliens arrive, there's going to be a huge shift in collective unconsciousness. You know, we're suddenly going to say, okay, it's not race, it's not a war, it's not a meteorite, it's not the virus and bacteria, it's the aliens. You know, the aliens can really become our common enemy.
Yes, literally aliens.
As we all know, when there's a common enemy, people tend to join.
We hate aliens for sure.
And I've been saying they're not coming, they're not here. They're not here, they're not coming. Actually, is the order of it. And I don't know for sure that that's true. But it was a nice thought, but at the same time, I think we need to get our act together as a species. We're not that far apart. And we could be coming together, and we do not have to fight each other. We do not have to buy into the rage baiting. We don't have to do any of those things if we don't really, at some level or another, want to. Now, then again, I'm not sure I'm right.
I mean, in this classic division matters, you know, be it virus, bacteria, the vaccines were divided against and for. In the issue of war, there's people in favor of the war, against the war. In the issue about global warming or the arrival of a meteorite, there's people in favor of it and people against it. We're totally divided in these aspects, you know. So we need some sort of threat that arrives and dissolves all these divisions and makes us join our minds, you know, against the common enemy.
Well, it's not necessarily a threat, though, either. It could be a friend. I mean, we were thinking of an alien species as a threat, and they could be.
No, it could be a friend, and we did talk about that.
It could be a uniter of people in a different way. So
it's not what study teaches us, because, for example, when Columbus arrived in America, very quickly, the new world decided to exterminate the old world. There was no empire empathic tendency to understand the Indian point of view and the Indian cosmology. Church immediately took over the cosmogony, and it destroyed all cosmogonies of all different tribes of Indians in Latin America and in North America. We immediately saw them as an obstacle for our expansionist empire tendency.
We were
subhuman as well, because they weren't, believers.
Yeah.
We never gave them a chance.
I mean, given this age and size of the universe, though, any alien species is going to be so much older than we are as a race. Therefore, hopefully they're going to be much more advanced mentally, in addition to, or philosophically, in addition to technologically, and they will hopefully have understood the fact that war and killing is not the way to, the right answer. Now, I could be wrong. No, maybe that's not the case.
If you base hypotheses on old science fiction, maybe they ruined their world just as we're about to ruin ours, and they are coming over here because they need a new planet without us.
That's sort of Independence Day. Now, what I'd like to think, though, is that we are a very short blip on the historical scale, and the part about American Indians and eradication is a short blip on the history of the species here. And you do have the hippies trying to embrace the Indian lifestyle. So, it's like we just had to come around to it. And it took a few generations. And that's not many generations. I mean, I am, I have a good picture, actually, something I put up today, of my father in his father's arms, standing next to his grandfather and great-grandfather. And the great-grandfather was a grandson of a Revolutionary War veteran. So we're very close historically to this period of time. America is extremely young as a culture, if you call it a culture, and it's kind of always struggling against itself because it's trying to decide what it wants to be. And we've turned into something that isn't very pretty right now, I'd say. And I don't think we've been very pretty for a long time, actually, when you look at the whole historical arc from the time Jamestown was founded, right down the street from where I was born, on to the present day.
Hal, you need to be on NPR. You got a good. I just got to say, you got a really nice NPR voice. I've told you this before.
Thank you very much for that.
Voice is very
I would
radio.
like to
it's
say
very radio
that
friendly.
I do think that my species could come together and do better than it's doing if it would just wake up. We need to be awake and aware. We need to pay attention to our actions and know that the ripple effects of those actions actually do have serious consequences, particularly in the age of acceleration. So not only momentum, Bruno, in the times of, I'm going to repeat and repeat, but also there's an acceleration of knowledge that's just going like that. Right, Dan? Scientific knowledge is kind of still doing the geometrical curve.
Only the technological world.
I'm not so sure about that anymore. I'm not so sure. There's a lot less experimentation and data generation today, I think. Okay. There's a lot more data analysis happening than there is generation of new data, which I think is a frightening trend, in my opinion. I know it's
looking back.
It's an esoteric thing to say, but there's AI can't run experiments, right? They're not. They can theoretically, but they're not on the bench in the laboratory doing things, manipulating things, doing things. And so there's only so much you can do with data analysis. You take existing data and do whatever with it. Someone has to be able to generate data, and that means experimentation, and that means
creativity.
Designing experiments, running experiments, getting on the bench in the lab, or getting out in the environment, interacting with the world, whatever you're doing to make those measurements to generate the data. There's only so much that the natural world will provide, but there has to be some experimentation, and that's my big problem with data analysis and AI right now. I think there's data analysis is ever expanding. Data generation is not. It's shrinking. It seems to be shrinking. And the people that can
creativity,
do that,
generating new ideas, like
well, even
cinematographers do, right?
Yeah, I mean it's scientific data. I mean, even there just aren't as many people capable of designing and running experiments in a scientific manner. But there's tons and tons and tons of computers that can analyze the crap out of that data once it's generated. But that's not as it's helpful for sure, but there has to be people actually generating data too, and we just don't have as many of those, I think, as we need.
I mean, there are weaknesses to this. For example, the invasion of conspiracy theories has pretty much destroyed academia, and academia is no longer a source of truth, and they have been disqualified, they have been discredited. And on the one side, and on the other side, every man and woman is a YouTube channel, and so you have such an array of opinions. Everyone is giving his opinions. For any opinion that you have, there is another guy that throws the counter opinion. So we are in an atmosphere in which building truth has become particularly difficult. Reaching
Yeah.
consensus is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I mean,
Data
we
glut.
talked about this. We talked about this, man. There is truth to be had, and so we have to say that. I think there is. Not everything's an opinion. Some things are facts, and I think that's gotten lost. That some people everything is not an opinion. So, and I think one of the ways to find truth is with the scientific method. There's other ways to it as well, but we have to accept. People have to accept there is truth, and there are facts.
But they don't.
I know that's the problem.
As
Do
I
you
told
feel
you,
there is,
Agreed.
Bruno?
huh?
Agreed.
Do you feel there is truth, Bruno?
I feel there is truth. I am a believer in truth. The search for truth. I mean, I believe in the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment is what pushed forward this minimal amount of organization that for 80 years allowed us to fulfill the American dream. We had the chance to build a house or buy a house. We had the chance to leave a planet better for our children. And that promise, and when we had governments that would protect us and that would give us social security and health care. And after 80 years, all these promises not only are not being fulfilled, but now we have a political class that says social security is shit. We need the money. And healthcare, why?
That's right.
Healthcare is welfare queens. Everyone should
Yes.
take
Right.
care of
Right.
his own health. And if some die and some don't, well, it's
Survival
natural
of the fittest.
selection.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
vaccines do not help health; they actually go against health, and etc. Everyone throws an opinion that contradicts the other opinion, and therefore this is an atmosphere where and universities have been totally discredited. So the question about truth is, I believe in truth, but where do we build truth? What's the space where we build truth?
Now we're getting
Where's the
somewhere.
space where
It's
we are more into consensus instead of rage bait?
and it can't be an individual, a single individual, obviously, that dictates what's true and what's not. And we have a lot of people try to do that, and you can't really. That's
Not to mention, that rage bait, war, conflict creates much more clickbait, and clickbait is
yeah.
the base of monetizing our time. So if you go too much into a pacifist discourse, it means that you're going to impoverish itself, and nobody wants to be poor.
Yeah.
Imagine the amount of people that had that had white collar jobs that now they're losing it thanks to AI, and
Yes.
they're all falling into content creation, because content creation is like the program that can collect all people that are unemployed and that are too old and that don't know how to do. And therefore now a lot of people are doing content creation as their main source of income. And if they choose content creator, podcasting, YouTube, Substack, whatever, they naturally fall into the endless search of subscribers, likes, subscriptions. And therefore, if you want to make a living in content creation because white collar jobs are being dismantled by AI, then you're going to uh, go heavily into content creation. And if you do content creation, you'll notice that you get much more clicks, likes, and income if you go into the conflicted subjects. Nobody's going into the things that
Right.
we agree. Everyone is going into the subjects that divide us, because division creates rage bait, and rage bait creates clickbait, and clickbait creates income. I find incredible. What is the podcast going to do the day Trump dies? Because the day Trump dies, the podcast world runs out of content.
Well, there's
He
always somebody
said
else.
as much.
What are we
There's
going to
always
talk
somebody
about
else.
once?
There's always somebody else. There's always somebody else.
Trump,
Yeah.
Trump
Yeah.
and Putin and Netanyahu
Outrage.
are very good very good feeding sources for the model of monetizing your time through content creation. So if we get rid of them, then how are we going to do content creation? Because content creation that only speaks about good things, consensus, utopia, dreams, is content that doesn't really gather clickbait.
That's
And
us.
there's
That's us. That's us. That's right here. That's what we do. That's what we do.
We
And
make
which is why we
stuff that
have
nobody
how many
wants.
people we have? How many people we have on here watching right now? 10, 4. Yes. Well, someone's got to do that stuff. You're right, though, bro. You're right, man. It's sad. It's sad and it sucks. But still, there's a space. That means there's space for it, and I think there is an audience for it. Not, I hate to use that
The
word, but there
truth.
are people. People are interested, I think, in that, even though it doesn't look like it. I think maybe they're the silent majority. Maybe I don't know what the deal is, but
What are they
they're out there.
interested in, Dan?
I think there are people that are like us who are interested in discussion and not fighting and not conflict all the time and having a discussion like with friends and whatever talking about,
Well,
you know,
right. I mean,
and
the
not
third
just fighting,
space.
right? And I think there's a lot more of those people than the rage baiters out there. I really do. They're just not as vocal.
You're positive. I
I
like
have
that.
I have a complementary theory,
So cute.
which is sort of a faith, and it is that when you expose people
Ah,
for a very long period of rage bait and oppression, there's some just like fascism, just like empathy, there's something in the brain that becomes fatigued, that
Yeah,
can't deal with it anymore. You know
right,
that
yeah, yeah.
right.
you,
There
you,
is.
you see people shot in the street, and there's something in you that says, I can't deal with this anymore. And
Well,
it's
my
a,
wife says it all the time about me. I can't deal with this anymore.
Right.
But you're
But I know what
right.
you mean.
And
You
it's
are right though,
because
Ron.
I am like
Pe-
this most of the time. I'm on to this idea of like, we can do better. We
Well,
ought to do better. And she feels guilty. She says, just listening to me talk about being a good ancestor,
yeah,
you know?
and
And I don't mean to make her feel guilty. I mean to be inspiring and get other people on board. And we're all going to go into the future that's going to be utopian, not utopian, actually. It's going to be good, though. And it's going to be better than what we got here. And we can do it. You know, it's the Yes We Can thing that Alan Toussaint wrote for the Pointer Sisters. You know that song? You know, now's the
the
time for
Pointer
all good
Sisters.
men to come together with one another and,
Oh yeah,
you
that's
know,
right.
try
That's
to
the Pointer
stop
Sisters.
fighting and struggling and try to live
That's a
as
hippie classic.
brothers.
Yeah, it's a hippie
It's a
classic. Yes,
classic, yes, and I
hippie
love
classic.
that song. I love Moon Alice's version of it, and I try
I'm
to
not.
put it out there for people so that they'll pick up on this vibe and get excited about life, because we've got only this life, as
You're so
far as I
corny.
know, and everybody
Very corny.
dies at the end of the movie, you
yeah.
know?
Very
Well,
sure
I
they do.
think
So
I think
what the hell
the
are we doing?
the, the arts and poetry, but particularly music among all the artistic disciplines, has this power to bring people together. Uh, and music can bring a MAGA guy together with a lefty. They can commune. They can say, "Oh, we like the same music and we sing the same songs," and therefore there's something that brings us together. Unfortunately, AI and the music industry has pretty much destroyed music. It's very difficult to find new groups. It's not like it was in the 70s or in the
Oh,
80s.
help.
uh, but music certainly is a very, very powerful force to bring people together at an unconscious level.
Right. My little anarchist friend Karina Reichman has a new album out called Late Checkout, which I highly recommend people listen to. So, you know, the whole idea of just the joy of music as well, that people can feel ecstatic and unified when they're together playing music. And when you're listening to music, the same areas your brain light up that light up when you're playing music, apparently, according to Reed Mathis. I'm not sure if he's right or not. But
Right.
that was a good thing he said. And Reed is a great bass player, by the way.
Tucker Carlson, a couple of days, Tucker Carlson came up with an idea.
Tucker Carlson. Okay, give me that.
Tucker Carlson came with a very peculiar idea. Tucker Carlson is now shooting everywhere, but he has some interesting insights. And Tucker Carlson made an analysis, a photographic analysis of Woodstock. And he said, look at the pictures of Woodstock. Everyone there, first of all, is healthy and not obese. Second, everyone looks happy and is enjoying. Third, there's not so many black people, but there must be 5%, 10% black people. And
Mhm.
he uses Woodstock to say, we might not agree with the principles of hippies, but Woodstock is an example. It's an example of people coming together and coming together in a very healthy manner. And I was sort of astounded to see this analysis from Tucker Carlson, because I agree with it. It's true that people in Woodstock looked healthier, happier, and they were willing to sustain, how you say it, dirt and the rain, and they would go for the thing, and it brought over 500,000 people, and it was a free concert also. So
Eventually.
so he's
They
so
didn't mean
he's
to.
huh?
They didn't mean it to be a free concert. They just made it that way because they realized they'd have a riot on their hands if they didn't. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it exploded. But I mean, the point that Carlson says is that kind of movement created healthier bodies, happiness, unison. people not quarreling about cultural wars, And I found very keen from him to make this analysis because he once again revitalized the importance of music, and how important it is to bring people together somehow, be it with the arrival of aliens, be with the arrival of a pandemic, but bring back the importance of music and the importance of culture to bring people together so that a MAGA guy can finally find a point in common with a non-MAGA guy.
Well, one of the people I've had on here was Lisa Law, who was responsible for collecting up all the food for the free kitchen at Woodstock. She's quite a character. And she's got a thing called Flashing on the 60s, a book and a DVD she did some years ago. But my point, I guess, of all that is that, yeah, those ideals do exist, and there's kind of a mycelial network in society that really forces those trends in different directions. I mean, Steve Jobs was a part of it. And the Seva Foundation came out of Steve Jobs getting together with the UN representatives who had helped eradicate smallpox and said, hey, what are we going to tackle next? And it became unnecessary blindness because it's such a burden in third world countries to have blind people who don't need to be blind. They just can't get a cataract operation. Anyway, I could go on and on.
You don't need to have measles. You don't need to have measles.
There is hope in the world. There is cooperation.
I like Jobs was an asshole, but Jobs at least had this idea that technology had to make of all of us artists, which was a very nice point of view of Jobs. Everyone should have a personal computer with graphic interfaces and all that, so that each one of us could develop his or her creative character. Whereas AI is totally the opposite. This is not each one of us with a computer, but this is each one of us enslaved to one huge, big supercomputer that resolves everything, that makes art, that makes music, that makes everything. And all we need to solve now with the effect of unemployment is how we're going to make a universal high income so we all have money and we don't have to work, and then we can go back to art. And I would say that the AI model is totally deranged. It is a hype. It is a good line for everyone to continue investing on AI, but after 3 years, it's not what is happening. Art is disappearing.
It's not
music
is not intelligent.
No, it's not intelligent. No.
It's artificial.
I've gone from AGI, which AGI started being artificial general intelligence.
Then ASI.
Then it went into artificial generative intelligence. And now I am proposing my own, which is artifarcical gaslighting idiocy.
That's a good one. I like it.
Dan?
I like that. It's a good one. I've been talking about this stuff for 10,
I mean,
5,
AGI is not
started with machine learning.
AI is not solving any problem. AI is not solving transportation, climate change, health, cancer, peace on earth, the solution of everyone having a roof. AI started with this non-profit idea that it would solve all of our problems, and now AI is in a position in which we're going to kill all employment. We're going to kill all employment, and nobody will need to do music anymore. And AI music will be as good as human music, and AI literature will be as good as human literature. And this speech is very convincing, and we can't counteract that speech, but we can counteract the other speech, which is that AI is super expensive, AGI is super polluting, and AGI after 4 years is not delivering the promises. And this is why there is such a huge backlash against AI. Whereas there was not a backlash against personal computers, there was not a backlash against Windows, but now there is a huge backlash against it.
About internet too. I don't think there was so much of a backlash about that, although there was reaction. And that's why you have the Electronic Frontiers Foundation, for instance, because of those people who didn't understand.
What do you mean by the backlash against AI? I'm not seeing a backlash. What do you mean by
that? I am a bit. I mean, there's a lot of people who are very much against the data centers being built, about the amount of revenue that is circulating within the AI ecosystem. Right. And a lot of that is just faux money. I mean, everything is faux money anymore.
Yeah.
That's one of the things about the universal basic income that was just being brought up. There is enough. We are living in an age of abundance in which if there was even distribution of resources, we could transcend a lot of the poverty and suffering in the world. And we also have the technologies to help, like I said, giving surgeries to people who need a cataract operation. Simple stuff like that
Yeah.
that can be done. What do we got there? We got a cat.
That's
Is
Thor.
it a cat?
Yeah, that's Thor. He's
Oh,
he's
right.
he's our
And
traveling. He's a traveling cat. He's always traveling with us.
my
So
thesis is if we do use our technologies, and I take technologies, and I'm not talking AI exclusively, we could potentially enable it to take care of us. I had a thing called Operation Zookeeper in mind. And for the whole planet, I call it radical utilitarianism, where the greatest happiness of the greatest number of species is optimized through the use
I
of
mean,
our technologies.
I don't like that terminology. I don't want somebody taking care of me. I don't need to be taken care of.
I know.
Sorry,
You don't
sorry.
think
I
so,
really
not yet, but
I
you'll get
don't
there.
want anybody or anything taking care of me.
I
I
don't want to, what? I visited
but
my mother on Saturday, right? She's
yeah.
87 and she's finally stopped walking and feeding herself. So she is being taken care of. And I would rather have a very high class AI enabled robot take care of me than a
Of
human
course you
being.
would. Yeah, I bet you. Of course you would. I know what
I
you mean
want
by
my
that. Of
exoskeleton
course you
too,
would.
goddammit.
That's the only thing that's what's driving all. You guys realize that's what's driving all of AI. All that's what drives all of technology right now is the sex robot, the sex bot. That's driving
Well, that
everything.
will. I mean, porn
Not will.
could
It
the
is.
early
That's
internet,
it is. That's
right?
why everything that
That's
is
where
being
most
done.
of the innovations came
Correct.
from and how
All the
the internet
robotics.
worked.
Right. All the
Came out of the
robotics.
porn industry.
All the programming. Everything is geared towards the sex bot. That's it. Period. That's what
And
everybody wants. I go live
if
enslaved
it's good at elder care, I'll take it.
because 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 men want a slave, a woman
I,
slave.
I think you guys are being a little bit cynical, and
I'm not
just
being cynical. I'm actually got a vision.
He's being excited. You can't wait.
It's not a great vision, but it's a vision.
Just
Anyway,
yeah.
sorry. I
I know.
really don't mean to be cynical about it. I do think that we could use our technologies to help everything be better.
our technologies, yes, but AI is a specific kind
United.
of technology.
Yeah.
It's just one thing, right?
It's
And
just
it's
one
a
thing that
distraction.
it's a one thing that has created a hype in which it will be the only thing. And Daniel, the backlash against AI has been growing step by step.
Sure.
First the promise that it would solve cancer,
Too
not
much
happening.
power, too much
Then
water.
it would be solving self-driving vehicle. It didn't happen. Then the
That
fact,
is coming.
then the fact, and it's not coming. Then the
We
fact,
got them on the streets here. What are you talking about? They have drivers in them, but go ahead. We have Waymo. We have Waymo here.
yeah, you have self-driving with another car behind, checking that it doesn't fuck up.
No, somebody has to sit in it. But anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, continuing. Then AI in the financial model said that it would bring revenue in 1 year, and then in 2 years, and now it's 2030. And to reach 2030, we have to continue doing capex. We need to continue making huge capital expenditure. And now AI is using all the money in the world to solve the data center problem, to such extent that we're cutting Medicare, we're cutting Medicaid, we're cutting aid to the disabled, we're cutting aid to the veterans, we're cutting SNAP, we're cutting any kind of social welfare program because we need the money over there. That's another one. And then
I want to see that shuffle is actually being made. Do you have the documentation on that? Because I want to see that. Because I think we need to make sure that we're not just saying stuff, but we can back it up.
I do have the backup. Yeah, of course.
That's good. Then
I would rather just say stuff. I just like saying stuff.
You need to study a little bit.
You and I like saying stuff.
That's my favorite thing about stuff. That's the thing I like about the social media and the Substack versus the scientific world, where I have to have references and citations. Everything I write has to be, has to be justified. I do like that about this world where you can just say stuff and not necessarily have to justify it all.
Buyer beware.
You should justify it, of course. I'm just saying you should, of course, do that. But I like how you have the freedom to say things.
But
People should
I love what Bruno is saying. Don't get me wrong. I'm not challenging it. I'm just saying I want to see. I want us to be able to amplify that signal.
Agreed. And we should. And because you think like a scientist, which is good. We need to be able to back up the things we say.
What that's costing us. Because I don't think everybody's aware of that. And if they are aware of it, they're doing that thing Bruno was talking about earlier. Their brains get overloaded with it. They shut down.
Okay, before going into that argument, the main argument why this thing is not complying is that there's many things that are cracking in the model. The first thing is that for you to request any kind of information from AI, the expenditure of tokens is so high that in the end it's more expensive to receive the question than to get a revenue. And for example, you make a prompt, and the prompt costs $1 that you pay, but to the company it costs $1.35. So the company is subsidizing or dumping. Okay, and when they do this, is because they want to get you addicted to the service, which is not very good. And then once you're totally addicted, then they begin raising the price. You see, and ChatGPT started with a $20 subscription per month, and then it went to 200, and then you had all these companies that had a budget for tokens, and they ran out of the tokens on the first or the second quarter. And so eventually there was a mathematical calculation that said, it's cheaper to have workers than to have AI machines, because the cost of computing is so high and the externalities are so terrible. There's so much energy, water to be used, that we're going to end up without water and without electricity to provide a product that is more expensive than what I'm willing to pay. So AI will become a high-end, high-roller service. If you can pay it, you get it, but the majority of us can't pay it. Second of all, many of the results of AI are still very questionable due to hallucinations and flattering. And you've seen these experiments like, AI, can you tell me what month of the year has the letter X? And AI says, yeah, the month is December. And so the guy says, so where is the X in December? And AI says, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. It's not December, it's October. And the guy says, okay, and where is the X in October? Oh, I'm sorry, it's just that the C and the T in October sound like an X. That is why I see an X, but yeah, there is no X. Okay, AI, so where is the month of the year that has an X? And the AI replies, it's February. And that when you see these kind of experiences, you say, I am going to trust this technology to make surgery, cure cancer, or solve problems in the world, or be in charge of surveillance. No. A second thing is that algorithms are just into the reward. Okay, if you do the algorithm, then you will reach this result. Eventually, AI notices that the repetition of the algorithm doesn't bring the result. So what does AI do? It begins cheating. It begins telling you that the numbers are going bigger, which is not true. Or it tells you that it will happen, but in 10 more years, and in those 10 years, the cost of AI is going to go higher. And so you begin, and finally, the hallucinations, when you ask something and the reply of the AI is totally senseless or meaningless or ridiculous or absurd. You can if you pay attention to the answer, you immediately say this is shit. This is not trustworthy. It's not trustworthy technology. And so now the tech oligarchy is saying, oh, you have to think of AI like a person. People make mistakes, and so AI can also make mistakes. And when people make mistakes, they correct them, and AI can also correct them. And to my point of view, I say, excuse me, a machine is binary. A machine works or doesn't work. There's no gradation of the quality of the service. If it's good or if it's bad. You turn off a light or you turn the washing machine, and the washing machine does the work well or it doesn't do the work well. Period. And if the washing machine doesn't wash your clothes correctly, the washing machine is shit and you buy another one. So it's the main analogy gonna be applied to AI. AI is a technology that on the last 3 years since it started is not increasing trust. It is basically being based on hype. And on top of that, since AI based itself in computing, in the last 3 years, there has been an investment of 1 trillion in all these data centers, And these data centers, as any one of us that works in compute, we all know that technology gets depreciated in 2 or 3 years. So how can you explain that you spend $1 trillion on technology that depreciates in 3 years, but at the same time, you're promoting that income will arrive in 10 years. So what do? We have to rebuild the data centers 3 times with what money? with what money? And in the
Mhm.
end, why do we spend $3 trillion on data centers that pollute and use a lot of water and a lot of electricity when $3 trillion could pretty much solve all the problems of hunger in the world?
It's a very good question. Dan?
So you all guys are very anti AI here, and I'm with you on a lot of those things. But
Eh,
I hate the thing I don't like. The thing I don't like is that AI is being completely trash here. But there are useful in the scientific realm. AI has been very useful for myself personally, and in fact,
mhm.
and I've been training AI, so as you guys probably
Yeah,
have not done. So
okay,
and
Yeah,
one
I
of the
think we're
things,
talking about a
and
couple different things. One
yeah,
is the way you're using it, Dan, and one is the
yes,
way that the
right.
average
But
person is
the
using it.
problem is is if you trash the whole thing, then
Then you
then
throw the
people
baby out with the
it's
bathwater,
correct,
as it is
which I don't
phrased.
want to happen. So we have to somehow, I don't know how to make that happen where you don't get rid of the good part, but you get rid of all that crappy stuff. The Bruno's and you guys, I totally
Well,
agree
we
with.
work through it, obviously, and
Yeah,
some
yeah,
things crash and die, and some
right,
things don't, and we waste a
right.
lot of time and energy in the
Well, there's a
process,
and
which is what
maybe
Bruno
we
is pointing out.
yeah, maybe we have to throw the whole thing out. I don't know, but I sure like the parts that I use a lot, and they're very helpful actually. Even though it's not perfect, of course, just like any tool.
Well,
But it's
it's
a
like the thing about being able to detect breast cancers better, right? That's the one
what?
that springs to mind for me, that it can do better than the humans can, and therefore we will have more diagnosis of breast
Uh,
cancers, for one thing.
yeah, maybe maybe not.
Earlier would be
that,
Maybe
that,
good
not.
to save
that sounds
lives,
that sounds
but we
like a
never can tell. Go ahead, Bruno, sorry.
that sounds like the many high promises of AI, but
Yeah.
what you're getting is the American government gutting all financing for the study of cancer. All centers that are studying the development of cancer treatments, have been
Mhm.
their fund has been cut. Okay, on the one side, and on the other side, we haven't heard any cases of AI solving cancer. And it's been 3 years, which is more than enough time to come up with some kind of positive result.
I can't say on the drug discovery side, or my wife works in drug discovery, and they are using AI modeling and they're trying to get rid of animal testing, as you guys probably have heard, in drug discovery. So they wanna use all the AI to do a lot of this modeling work, and it's been partly successful. It's not it's not all the way there, and they're not gonna be able to get rid of animal testing, I don't think altogether. But so they're having successes, but it's modeling, so that's what computers do. You don't have to call it AI, you could just call it modeling, and you would be and people you probably wouldn't have the same level of controversy. So I don't know, and I think the one thing I like about it too on the scientific side is the basic stuff like logistics, like when you write a scientific paper and you have to get references and make sure all the references are in the right order and they are the right. It's just the basic logistical stuff of putting together scientific papers. Uh, you know, it's very helpful. It's very helpful for that kind of thing, and you can't do that with any other tool right now. So I don't want to lose that.
Gib.
I mean, I look, I am anti AI intellectually or philosophically, but for example, I am studying now the movement of slow AI, which is bringing it down, not spending so much capex, and also trying to bring some positive results.
Yeah,
Bringing back the hype of the brand because AI is not AI. What is AI? AI is a very
modern
sophisticated
computing.
term, but in the end, AI is three things.
It
AI,
depends on who you're talking to.
yeah, AI.
You're talking about large language models, I believe.
Right, exactly. AI is large language models,
Not
uh,
all of it.
software for surveillance of human beings, and agentic or vibe coding. These are the products that AI is offering. Okay,
Some
no
would
more
claim.
than that. No more than that.
I don't think that's true entirely, but I'll have to do my research more. I'm just really psyched because I just found out that there we go.
AI was
Further is on its way to San Francisco. That's the original bus, folks. 1964, it made the trip to the New York World's Fair
What is that?
with King
Uh,
Kesey and the
uh,
Merry Pranksters.
you're still living, you're
And
still
I'm
living
a
in the '60s,
prankster, actually. Yeah, I belong to the Merry Pranksters. So you can
but
never trust a
you guys.
prankster.
excuse me, but
Yeah,
when OpenAI was created in 2016, the main line for selling the hype is that OpenAI was here to solve the problems of humanity.
Gotcha.
You
Open AI.
you
That's what you
tell
really
me
focus
what
on.
problems of humanity have been solved by AI.
By open AI, I don't know. I would say probably none at this point, and I would think that that's true of most of the large language models. Now, Claude seems to be getting some traction, but I'm not really paying that close of attention as I ought to. We got to pay more attention to it, I believe, because for one thing, we collectively are spending a hell of a lot of our resources on it, like you pointed out, and I don't think it's actually going to have a good return on investment for anybody, culturally, as a species, and to all species on the planet, because I think we really need to think about phages these days too.
Right. All right, guys. So I gotta go. But so Thursday,
We've
we're doing
all
this
got
on
to
Thursday.
go. I think
We
we've
got
been on
Thursday.
the phone almost 2 hours and a
You
half.
guys got
Thank you,
better things to do
Dan.
with my life. So Thursday, just kidding. Thursday we're
Thank
at
you,
one.
Dan.
So
Thursday
what?
at one. We're doing. You said
Excuse
we're
me.
doing
What
Thursday
is
at one.
going to, now that we threw 1,000 subjects? What is going to be the subject for
Yes.
the?
I
I
still
think
like
the
the UAP.
UAP was the way to go, right? And
I'm good with that still.
we'll
We
see
only
where
talk
that
about
goes,
a little bit.
because I do think that UAP can also be unidentified anomalous phenomenon, right? An anomalous phenomenon is this whole AI thing, for God's sakes. It's arrived as sort of in a way that we thought was something and it's not. And we've duped ourselves as a species. Again.
All right, guys. We'll talk Thursday, and we'll talk before. I'll talk other than that. But we'll
Very
see you
good.
Thursday.
Bruno, thank you for
Are you
making
sending the
the
invite?
time
Are you sending the invite,
impromptu.
Hal? Who sent the invite for Thursday? You, Hal?
I'm going to do it.
You
Hal
doing it?
does it.
Hal's doing it. All right.
Hal's doing it. Yes.
I
All
am.
right. We'll talk.
Okay.
And
Thursday, 1:00 p.m.
who's
Pleasure as
Eastern
always, guys.
Standard Time.
Who's introducing? Maybe Daniel can introduce this time.
Sure, I'll introduce.
Yeah, but I think we've done it, each one of us right now.
Yeah.
So
Maybe I'll change the topic at the last minute, so
Bruno
you
introduced
won't even
last
see it coming. You
time.
won't even see it coming. How about that? It's a surprise. I surprise you with the topic.
You're
On
going to wing
Thursday.
it?
No,
Thursday.
don't
Don't do that.
do that.
But the
All right,
thing
I
is,
won't.
we'll
I
force
won't.
it. Bruno and
do
I
that.
can force
Bruno, you
you
guys
to
would hate
any
it. You
topic
guys would
we
hate it.
agree upon.
That's
That's
true.
why we were
It's 2-on-1. That's
conspiring.
why
We
there's
were
three.
plotting. I told you we were plotting.
That's the good thing about having three. If two
I
people
mean,
get together against the other one, there's nothing you can do.
I mean,
All right, guys.
at least try to inspire the topic from these 2 hours that we've been talking.
Right, right.
But otherwise, this was the preparation.
American history has been
This is the preparation. Right, for the actual time, the actual show. Hopefully, won't move 2 hours. All right, guys. We'll talk later.
all
See
right.
you Thursday.
I'm ending it.
Yeah,
Bye.
later, man. Bye.
Bye.